there's a weird, funky snail somewhere where they want to build a bunch of houses,
Yeah.
and keep them from building those houses. But, I am cognizant of, well, if we kill all those snails, all of them will be gone. That's the last bunch that there is on the
Yeah.
planet. So
Yeah.
let's, at the very least, let's consider that. Let's keep
Yeah.
that in mind while we're doing. Now, are snails more important? No, no, not than human beings. No, but so
Yeah. It's amazing though how much you find out about certain species. That's it's like when certain ones that it's are they more important than the human race? Maybe, maybe not, but we wouldn't have this without them,
oh yeah,
or
yeah, right.
like the friggin' honeybee,
Oh
it's
yeah, yeah. They're there for
you
a
know,
reason, and then you
yeah,
find out they're there because of this and because of that and because of that, and so yeah, you change that one thing, and unfortunately, all those dominoes fall, and it's like, well, then what have you done?
yeah. All right, I'm gonna go. We are officially live right
Okay.
now. I'm gonna. This is the part of the show where Steven sends the tweets that say we're live.
Tweet, tweedly, 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 tweedly. Sorry.
All right, so there's one. Send the other one. And then we can get rolling.
Keep on rolling, baby. You know what time it is.
I'm going to say this about Limp Bizkit. Limp Bizkit is a band that has proven to me that as long as the lyrics don't personally offend me, as long as they're not offensive, I
Hmm.
could really give a crap what they're saying.
Okay.
As long as the music's good, because
Right.
sometimes I'll listen to one of their songs and I'll just be jamming, and then I'll start to
Yep.
pay attention to what he's saying, and it's like, you're just
Oh.
really, I mean, hip hop has there are times in hip hop songs where they don't really say anything, but they're still kind of saying something, at least
Right. Right.
they're bragging about their neighborhood or their ability to weave a rhyme together. And some of those Limp Bizkit songs, it's like you're literally just finding words that rhyme and then sticking a bunch of words in between. And that's
Right.
because you're saying absolutely nothing. And I don't care because the beat has
Yep.
got me moving.
It's like, I like the music, but dog, your poetry sucks.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
which, well, fortunately, that's not why I like this particular song, but yeah, it's,
I was a musician. I was in a local club playing band when when their first album came out, before they really hit it big, and because
Mhm.
they played in Lawrence a number of times, and they've even got one of their songs off that first album when they're going through he's just basically naming off all the places that they've played,
Okay.
and they throw out Lawrence, Kansas at one point
So
in there.
where did they stop there because of the college?
Oh yeah,
Were they on a
yeah.
college circuit? Okay.
Lawrence used to have a fairly decent music scene back
Okay.
in the day. I don't think they do much anymore, but they had a
Wonder
pretty good live
why it
scene.
changed. I mean,
I don't know. Hello, Terry. Terry says hi.
hello, Terry.
For those of you joining us live, we'll get started here in a second. Yeah, matter of fact, on campus, they used to, I think they still do it. Every year they'd have this, I guess you could call it an outdoor festival called Day on the Hill, right next to the football stadium, the Campanile, I think it's called. It's a big hill, and a lot of students would come and sit on the hill and watch football games because you can see the field
Okay.
from the hill.
I
And
got you.
so they would put on this show once a year out there on the hill called Day on the Hill. And one year I remember they booked this band that when they booked them to come close out the show, they were squat. But by the time the show came around, well, it was Pearl Jam, and they were pretty big,
Oh,
and it was a freaking amazing show.
yeah.
I talk to people every once in a while. I used to work with this guy, when I worked at Walgreens, and he was talking about, hey Doug, what's up? Doug's joining us. I mentioned to him about being there that day, and he was so, oh my God, you saw Pearl Jam on Day on the Hill. And I was
No
like,
doubt.
yeah,
Yep.
it was pretty crazy. It was a good show.
Yeah, my one claim to fame like that is here in Southern West Virginia. I had an opportunity to see this, just a local sounding country bar band. I mean, it was no big deal, and the name escapes me because when they got it big, they changed their name to Alabama and just
There you
took the
go.
heck
Yeah.
off. Yeah. So
Yeah. My closest brush, there is it's no longer there. There is a little club um just right outside of Lawrence, out in the middle of nowhere. It was called the Outhouse, and it was basically I mean, it was a dive, but all the punk bands from across the country, that was one of the, when you toured the United States, you played the Outhouse in Lawrence, Kansas, if you were a punk band. And one of the bands I was in, our singer, the band he was in before he got into our band, they played the Outhouse one night, opening up for Green Day. It was before Green Day got huge. I mean, it was,
right.
they were still a little, they were just touring the country in their van.
But
yeah,
still, it's
yeah.
like, yeah.
A lot of those bands, the punk bands from back then that got kind of big, they were, when they were just out there doing their thing, they played the Outhouse in Lawrence, Kansas. There's a documentary about it out there somewhere. I haven't seen it.
About Green
The
Day
Outhouse.
or about the
the club, the Outhouse.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep. All right. And I distinctly remember a night we played a little club in Kansas City, downtown Kansas City, the same night that REM played the big stadium in Kansas City. And we got done with our set, and we were standing outside on the sidewalk smoking cigarettes, and it was
watching
just
Captain Kangaroo.
Pretty much, yeah. It was really dead out there. It was like 1 a.m. or something. And this really nice, like panel van type thing just drives up. And the guy in the passenger seat rolls down the window, and he starts going, hey, do you guys know a place where I can get some pizza? And we kind of, we went up to the van, and we're talking to this guy, and it's like, yeah, do you know where I can get some pizza that I'm not going to be mobbed by frat guys? And that's when we noticed it was freaking Michael Stipe from REM.
Yeah, you're like,
and we were like,
well,
Kansas City's not really our town. We have no idea where, he just wanted a slice of pizza.
right.
Where frat guys
would
wouldn't
go
mob
and
him.
eat, and yeah,
he frat guys is what he said. He didn't want to be mobbed by frat guys. I thought that was funny. All right. For those of you joining us live or maybe watching this later, I've been tweeting and junk about this thing tonight all day, and I've decided that maybe rather than calling this thing here that we do the making of the Superman Super Show, I've been calling it the Superman Super Show Live.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Terry says, and then we mobbed him. I was not an REM fan at that time. We played metal, and they were not metal.
They were not metal.
You get older, and I can listen to REM now, and I can totally appreciate their music and go, they were actually pretty good. They, that's some good stuff they put together. But in my 20s, hell no. No way. No.
Is this live episode 12?
This is episode 11.
11. Okay.
Yeah.
I see here on Twitter, for those of us that are of a particular vintage, that album of the year, best pop vocal album, record of the year, and best pop duo group performance nominations were just handed out this year for ABBA.
Wow, that's crazy.
I knew that they had dropped a new album, but it's like, wow, that's like
everything
probably
old is
their
new again.
First nominations in what, 20 years?
It's nice to see that though,
30
that
years,
a group like that who are just huge 3 decades ago, and then just kind of fell out of the, pop culture, and then suddenly they're just back.
back.
It's
Yep.
crazy.
Yep.
You see it a lot nowadays with, like look what happened with Metallica because of
Hmm.
Stranger Things and
Right.
stuff like that, but
They're-
if they put out a new album and they're doing really good with it, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
All right, so for those of you who maybe are watching this for the first time, let me just kind of explain. I'll try to make it
What?
very, very brief what we're doing.
What? The first time? Yeah,
Sutherland on
Darren and
losing.
Ruth Sutherland is who Terry's referring to. Actually, they're
Okay.
the ones that retweeted this off the ABBA Twitter feed.
I saw something about ABBA today, and I just ignored it. I
So
had no idea that's what that was. That's
there
funny.
you go. They got 4 Grammy noms.
That's crazy. Good for them.
Wow.
Good for them. So yeah, Ed and I do this little show called the Superman Super Show, where the two of us get together and we read Superman through the golden age, one issue at a time or one story at a time, because certain books, for example, the Superman books at this time were around 19. Well, we're easing into 1940,
Right.
where we're at right now. But yeah, we just talk about one story at a time. And what we're doing here is we try to get together once every, whenever we can. And then we just try to do a big bulk of episodes, at least 4. That's the goal. I think we've been able to do 4 a couple of times. We did it last time, and I think we'll do it tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So those of you who are watching, you're just basically watching us record 4 episodes of a podcast.
Record a podcast is actually, is what you're doing.
Yeah. We're fairly laid back about it too. So
yep.
Yeah, and I guess we'll just call this the Superman Super Show Live. So you could literally watch these, come join us live every 2 weeks to once a month, however often we get together, and just sit and watch them. And then, you don't need to go listen to the podcast. We'd appreciate it if you did, but
or at least download it.
Yeah, download it
and then just ditch it because you've already heard it.
We need that. We need that number so we can get that cheddar.
There you go. That way iTunes will like us, and will, all that algorithm and all that stuff. And
Ed and I can finally retire. One of these days,
humping
man.
tún long, man.
One of these days.
Time. Yep. That's it. It's coming.
So we're going to be starting with Action Comics number 22. We're going to try to get through the story in that, Action Comics 23, and then the first 2 stories from Superman number 4. So Terry says nope. I think that's her saying you're not going to retire. My wife says the same thing. She's like, we're never retiring. No. We're going to work till we're dead, and that's just not because we want to, not because we're like I just have that work ethic. No, it's because we're not going to be able to afford anything.
Yep.
So yeah. Yep. All right. I'm going to go ahead and start recording on my Audacity.
Okay, I've got mine going.
I don't think we need to, we don't need to do the clap thing anymore because I don't ever use it.
Okay.
I find it pretty easy to sync us up these days.
To find it. Okay.
Yeah. So we don't need to do that. I got the show notes. I'm starting the first one.
Okay.
So, and maybe this time you'll stop stealing my stuff.
Oh, some of your light. Sorry, man.
And I'll remember when it's time for me to talk. Because we had that one episode where I was like, "This is you, man. I'm waiting on you." I'm like, nope.
No, I'm waiting on you.
Yeah. And if you are joining us live, like Doug and Terry, there's Doug. None of us, Doug, I feel you, man. It's not going to happen. I'd love to, but what am I going to do? Sit around and read comics? I do that now. So,
come on.
I'm not going to be one of those.
Grow up.
Even if I had the money to retire, it's not like I'm going to do anything. I might travel, but probably not. That sounds like a lot of work. I've reached the age where I don't like driving at night.
It's not that I don't like, it's that it's rather difficult.
Mhm. Especially if it's wet,
Oh,
either
raining
raining
and
or just
oh,
wet. Because
nice.
sometimes it's like I can't see the stripes on the road. It
Yep.
just uh
Yep.
getting
Turns
old
into just one
sucks.
big lens flare.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
this is not cool.
Yeah. It's amazing how quickly stuff like that happens too.
Yep.
It's like overnight, it's like, "Ooh, I don't like driving at night anymore." So
Yep. You're like, man, I came out last night and it was just fine.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
All
no,
right.
that was 10 years ago, dog. That's sorry.
Oh, I think I was saying if you're watching live, come into the chat. And hopefully,
Definitely. Yeah.
some folks read along with us, and
Chat us up.
you have something to say. We try to pay attention to the chat. It's right there, but sometimes well, first of all, there's a delay,
Right.
so keep that in mind. We may say something and you immediately type something up and boom, respond to it, but we may not see it for like 3 minutes because of the delay. So, or we're just so into talking about Superman, we're not
That's it,
looking at
man.
it.
We're
All
we're
right.
on our thing in our groove.
That's right. Sometimes we get into that Superman groove. All right, you ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay, here we go. You're listening to the Superman Super Show, episode number 31, Europe at War, part 1. Hello and welcome to the Superman Super Show. I'm a host. My name is Steeven, and 1,000 miles over there to my right is another host, Mr. Ed Moore.
Howdy, folks. Damn fine to be here.
So this is our banter segment, and
Banter.
we know because we're starting to get to be old pros at the banter. And we know we've got the book that tells us what we should talk about. So
Right.
subject number 1, how's the weather over there?
It just turned to winter.
Yep, same with
been
us.
been hovering just above freezing for the past 3 or 4 days. Today was particularly nasty. It was a little bit warmer, like 35, 36, but it rained like buckets all day long. So
Yeah.
that always seems to make it feel colder.
Yeah. That's kind of what it's done here. We had a light snow overnight, and then it's just been wet today because of it. So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we haven't
All
really
right.
gotten any. If we have gotten snow, it snowed and then just blew away real quick or anything. It's not been anything
Yeah.
any substantial at all. But yeah, it's just been cold and windy here.
I love the snow, but ever since our second winter here, maybe it was when it froze, and I stepped out on the porch one morning and said, those steps look fine, and
Oh,
slid off the porch. And yeah,
mm,
we usually always have a thing of de-icer ready
mhm.
for the winter, but we don't have any right now, and I need to get some because
Yeah,
it
you better
worries
get
me.
some because the weather knows that you don't have any, and
Yep.
you're gonna get caught.
Well, we have a back door with no step. I could go out the back door that's on, ground level, come around the house. I
Okay.
can do that if necessary, but that sounds like a lot of work. So, do you
Okay.
mind if I suggest a podcast real quick?
No, go ahead, man.
It actually ties into Superman. It's called Stealing Superman. I just wanted to throw this out there because I've been having a lot of fun with this podcast. It's a iHeartRadio original podcast. And here, I'll just read you the description real quick. It was the most unlikely art heist of all time. Join some improbable detectives and one determined comic book dealer as they investigate the mysterious theft of the most important comic in the world, a comic stolen from Nicolas Cage. And I think episode 4 for anybody watching live, episode 4 actually lands tomorrow. By the time this episode comes out, I don't know. I think if they go past 6 episodes, then episode 6 will
We'll be
land.
dropping.
But it's a lot of fun. It's kind of like one of those true crime podcasts, but
Mhm.
it's about Action Comics #1. And that wasn't the only book that got stolen from him that night. Apparently, there were a couple other books. I think Detective Comics 27 was taken as well.
And he's never found them.
I think somebody returned his Action Comics #1. I feel like I read that somewhere. I don't know. I'm trying to avoid spoilers.
Spoilers.
It's
Yeah.
like, because I'm really having fun with the show. There's a lot of twists and turns, and just learning how he just didn't really secure those comics very well. And it sounds like somebody came in during a party and just kind of walked out with them. They're displayed in these custom frames that do lock and have alarms on them, but apparently he likes to show them off, so he would leave them unlocked a lot. So yeah, it's a pretty fun podcast so far. If you're not listening, go check it out, because it's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it.
Well, cool beans.
All right. Well, let's get into this book then. We are going to be talking about a little story called Europe at War, Part 1. And this appeared in Action Comics #22. It was written by Jerry Siegel, pencils by Joe Shuster, and inks by Paul Cassidy. Action Comics #22 has a cover date of March 1940, but according to Mike's Amazing World of Comics, link will be in the show notes, they show an approximate sale date of January 23rd, 1940. And let me tell you what happened in this story. And this is a synopsis that comes from Mike's Amazing World of Comics. A European army of Taurans, which totally fake. None of these countries are real. They invade the lesser nation of Galonia, igniting a war. Clark Kent and Lois Lane are sent to Europe as war correspondents. Aboard the steamer Baranta, Clark saves the life of a foreign actress, Lita Laverne, from an assassin. Later, Clark catches Lita engaging in espionage. Clark has a chance to speak with Lita at a reception after they reach Europe. The brief interview confirms Clark's suspicions, but the reception is interrupted by a raid conducted by a bomber. Clark, as Superman, deals with the plane and then follows Lita. He learns of a scheme to attack a neutral ship in order to bring the democracies to the side of the aggressor Taurans. Superman defeats the submarine and exposes the plot and Lita. Ed, what'd you think of this one?
This one was a little bit more grounded, a little bit more spy-y or spy-ish or whatever the adjective would be. Then, particularly than really the next three. But also of a lot of the previous stories. I mean, he still did, some super stuff, but the story itself just seemed, I don't know, it just felt more grounded.
Yeah, I find it interesting that the last time we did this, the live show, we talked about 4 stories, and each story per episode got progressively better. Mm-hmm. And it's like by that last one, which is going to be what, episode 30, that story we were just having a ball with that story. And I think that's the same thing's going to happen tonight.
Yeah.
Going from that would have been what, Action Comics 21,
right,
with the freaking the ultra humanite whose brain is in the body of a female famous actress and all that crazy stuff that happened in that issue. To go from that to this, it's almost a bit of a downer, because this felt very pedestrian compared to the previous issue.
Just by itself. Just this story in a vacuum. Yes, you're right. Yes. Compared to just the one, if we had been reading these month over month, just last month's story, man. Yeah. And then this one, and you're like, oh, wow. But that's because this is the slow burn portion of a story that actually will continue over the next 3 installments. So if starting here, things are going to ratchet up again over the next couple months, particularly since when Action comes out, it will come out in the same month as, I don't know, one of these two books.
Mhm.
And so, you get all of that. And yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
just by itself, it's kind of a wah, wah when you
yeah,
get done with it. Not bad,
yeah,
but just
not
in
bad.
comparison.
It had some fun moments. I liked when Clark spied the assassin on the boat. He saw
Hmm.
him with his supervision and takes him out by taking what are those things called, the pin, something pin off of the boat.
Pinion, let's see, right here, or here, a belaying pin?
Yeah, belaying
Belaying
pin,
pin?
and just freaking knocks the guy out of the crow's nest or wherever he was perched with his rifle. And I really like that. And I also found it funny, and we've talked about this before. Joe Shuster, when he's drawing women, the only way you can tell them apart is when he changes their hair color.
Mhm.
And so when Clark bumps into Lita Laverne and he's like, "Oh, she looks very exotic." I'm like, "No, she looks just like Lois, who's standing
Yeah,
right
right.
next to you." And there were times in this story that I'm like, "Is he talking to Lois? Is he talking to Laverne?" Because you know the cuts between scenes. There were a lot of really quick scene cuts in this story, and all four of these that we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yeah. Let me jump in and say that this was probably drawn by Paul Cassidy,
Oh, okay,
not Schuster, from a lot of the stuff that I read.
okay,
Not that that changes what you're saying, because
right,
Cassidy does the same thing.
yeah,
And something that I think I have noticed is that Paul Cassidy has this tendency in females, and it's very evident in this story, that the females in his world do not have a nose.
yeah.
I'm not sure how that
Weird.
works, but Schuster typically has drawn, I think, the nose. I mean,
Yeah,
the what is it? A tenth of a second more in the illustrating just to do something
yeah,
to, you know, denote, denose a nose. Yeah. Anyways, to put a nose on there.
yeah,
But yeah, all of these women in this story in particular, very very little noses, if any.
yeah. So the one thing I did make a note about in regard to this story, currently you are tracking whenever we have a moment in a story where Superman hangs from a
Yes,
ledge is what we're looking for.
there's my
Uh,
list. Yeah.
but we're also counting times where he hangs from a building. It doesn't have to be like a
Hangs.
ledge. Yeah, if he's
Right.
hanging
Yeah.
from something. Well, over the past week, I have been kind of going through all these stories. I've been pulling out panels and whatnot because I've been kind of redoing a lot of the episode artwork that goes on the website. And I found something that when at first I thought was happening in like every other freaking issue, and then when I went back through them
Uh-oh.
to get examples, I really actually only found four. But I'm going to go ahead and start tracking this
Oh,
because
okay.
it
Uh-oh.
happens in this issue. There's a panel in this issue where Superman is standing alone and he's saying, "Someone's coming." That happens three other times in these Superman books before we get to this. The first time is in
Hmm.
Action Comics number 14. The second time is during Superman and the Skyscrapers in Superman number 2. The third time is in Action Comics number 19. And then the fourth time is this time here. And in fact, let me, I have I put a little graphic together. I don't know if it'll let me show it. Let's see. It's not going to let me do it. Oh,
Here it
well.
is. Panel 74 when he's on the roof.
Yeah. So, but I had been going through and pulling out panels to put these different art, art for the website, and I kept running into this. It felt like I found like 19 of them.
Hmm.
I kept running into these panels where he's going, "Someone's coming," and but no, I only when I went back through, I only found four. But it's something that I'm going to keep an eye out for, and I'm
Okay.
going to start tracking him, and we'll probably never see it again.
It'll come up sometime.
I was
It'll be a placeholder.
I was really disappointed today when I went back through, because I thought I was going to have this great thing, and it was like 4 times wah wah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I have a question about the very first panel, that opening splash panel.
Is that the one I'm thinking of?
What does
Yes.
dude whipping a dude have to do with this story?
Nothing at all. We've
Okay.
yeah, that's happened in a lot of these. The opening splash panel. We had the one where the bridge was collapsing, or
Hmm.
and the elevated train, and he saved them and then went into the story from there. But
Right.
most of these have been, yeah, nothing at all to
But
do with.
I don't know. This one just really stuck out to me
Yeah,
because
it's a weird one.
I mean, yeah, it's like I don't know, maybe pulled maybe from the newspaper strip or so. I don't know, but
Yeah,
it's
I don't
like,
know.
why do you have this piece of art laying around that you
I
can
don't,
put in here to use?
it's weird. Yeah,
It's a
because you
World
can
War
you
II story.
yeah, and you almost don't notice Superman up there in the corner
Yeah, yeah.
jumping, because the figure of Superman is so small. And then the text box, this is the splash panel where they do the whole faster than a speeding bullet thing,
Mhm.
but they have yet to condense that. And I'm sure it's probably the radio show or the TV show
Right.
where they condense that. But this one actually has a mo and I think they use the same text in the next issue as well.
Hmm.
They're repeating themselves, because it says leaping over skyscrapers, running faster than express train, and then springing great distances and heights. Well, we already got that from the jumping over the skyscrapers. It's like they really want us to understand that he can jump far.
Right.
I just thought that was weird. Lifting and smashing tremendous weights. Yeah, this is yeah, I found that was weird too. I just kind of went, "Whoa, what's going on here?" The dude's literally tied to a post, and another guy's whipping him, and
Yeah. That,
it could be uh, a soldier from one army who has captured another soldier and is trying
maybe, I
to
don't know. It
torture
just
information out of him. But yeah, we don't always get in that panel what's any
nope.
connection to the story itself. It's just like here's an exciting thing that Superman's doing while we describe how exciting Superman is.
All right. So as we're moving through here, on the next page is where we get to, right? The next page. Yeah, the next page is where we get to your man being hit off the ropes, whatever he's holding on to, by Clark
Yeah,
throwing the belaying pin,
yeah,
knocks him into the ocean there.
yeah.
He's
That
trying
was
to
pretty awesome.
trying to get a beat on Laverne.
I love. I don't know if this is considered cruise wear, what he's wearing there with the plaid suit jacket and the white pants
Right.
and the white vest. I mean, there's a dude behind him at one point that's almost wearing the exact same thing, except for his plaid jacket is green.
Now he's pretty done up because he's got a vest and a shirt and tie on.
Yeah,
And then later that evening, though, he eschews all that for just a dress shirt with a bow tie.
yeah. I think he's wearing a
More
tux.
formal, I guess.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
might be wearing a tux because
could be.
it's evening wear.
Yeah. Well,
That's his
yeah.
evening wear. Yeah,
Here in the next panel below, where he first shows up in this blue outfit, you see it's a vest and a jacket, whereas
yeah,
in the first panel it looks just like a jacket. But yeah, he's got
yeah,
a vest and a jacket on.
yeah. And he's always very typical of the when you see movies set in this time, he's always walking around with his hands in his pockets with his jacket behind his hands. You just seems very typical of men from that time. You always saw them pacing with their hands in their pockets.
Now, here in panel 24 is another scene of him dressing or undressing. Here, I guess
Yeah,
he's dressing, putting
yeah,
clothes on over the
yep,
Superman outfit.
yep. Yeah, those are always funny. It's more funny when he's in his apartment and just casually lacing up one of his Superman boots to go out on patrol. I just find those panels funny. But
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
just
really
just not a lot of
no.
outstanding or standy outy. Outstanding kind of makes it sound like I'm bagging on it, but I'm not. It's just it's very spy
Yeah.
World War II-ish, although it's not World War II, but it's emulating that with the bomber. Now, I will say the airplane, the bomber that they draw, and the submarine. I thought those were pretty well drawn.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't.
And the way he takes out that bomber is really actually pretty cool.
Yeah,
Because he
what did he
literally
do with those
jumps
things?
into its path, grabs onto the wing, and then just sticks his hand in the
Yeah,
propeller.
just trashes one of the propellers,
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
and then it comes back after him, and that's where he grabs the wheel, and it almost looks like he pulls it down, but he just
Right?
hangs on until it comes down.
Yeah.
And when he can, yeah, see, I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
once he has his feet on the ground.
I'm not sure how that works because the
I know.
airplane would still be moving.
I
Yeah,
know.
he
I know.
throws the airplane. Yeah, so okay. Allow me to suspend disbelief here
Yeah.
momentarily
Yeah.
and read that. Um, yeah, it just you know taking the submarine's own torpedo and waiting until it ran out of juice and
Yeah.
then throwing it back at rather than just turning it around. I mean,
Yep.
all he had to do was turn it around and let it go. But no, he's like, no, I'll wait until it runs out and then I'll take it and fling it at the submarine. It's like,
Yeah,
well,
that's a funny looking sequence because he's literally riding the torpedo like a bucking bronco. He has the one hand in the air
mhm.
like a a rodeo guy would, and then when it stops, he's just casually sitting on it. Like he's drinking tea.
Hey, that's kind of a big spectator sport out your way, isn't it?
It can be, yeah. We have the American Royal in
Rodeos.
Kansas City every year,
Okay.
and in fact, um, it's I don't know if they still do it, but each whatever year in grade school it was, third, fourth grade, each of my kids, there was a field trip that year and we always went with them because
Oh, to that?
yeah,
Oh, cool.
there was a thing that would happen beforehand where we'd go to all these different exhibits and talk about milking cows and uh,
Okay.
there was always one setup where they had a dog that would like a sheepdog, and it would corral up a
They
bunch
would
of
herd animals.
ducks and chickens and stuff. It was really neat.
Oh,
It was really neat to
cool.
watch.
Okay.
But
Now, is Kansas is it a big enough is rodeo big enough in Kansas that it is like a, letter, varsity activity at colleges, some of the different events?
I don't know.
Okay.
If it is, it's not something that I mean. There's a church outside of town that is like a literally a rodeo church because they have it's a freaking church, but they have a big rodeo pin, and
Out next to it, okay.
I don't know what rodeo has to do with worship. There's somehow they make that connection, and they've made a church out of it, but it's not something that I'm aware of as far as
Okay.
culturally kind of a big thing. I'm sure my kids probably know some kids that they went to high school with that maybe were really into it, but
Yeah,
we've never
I
done
know
that
there
thing.
is a collegiate circuit, but I'm not sure
Yeah.
where exactly in the country it is and what universities are involved.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's around here. It's got to be because of
Definitely not
the
to
American Royal and
disparage, because I
no,
enjoy
but
watching it.
when
The roping events and the,
yeah,
the cutting horse, where they ride and they go real close around
yeah,
the
yeah,
barrel and,
as
you know
close to the barrel as they can without touching it. Yeah, that's really
yeah,
neat.
yeah. Now others like the riding the bronco or riding the steer, those are
Yeah,
entertaining
where
to a
they
point,
kind of
but that's.
and they basically have something wrapped around their freaking
Yeah,
jewels
the male
that makes them
organs
want to
there,
buck.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it's like,
Yeah, that
you
kind of stuff.
would
But they
too.
always when we did go to the American Royal, we did the thing, there was always a thing during the first part where again we would go around and learn different agricultural type things, but then it always ended with like school level rodeo events. And so there were kids from, not, somewhere outside of Kansas, but there were kids locally that I didn't know any of them, but from grade school to high school that were competing in this. So
Okay.
it's just not something that, since my kids aren't involved in it, I have no
Right.
idea
Right.
how big it might or might not be.
Now those aspects that you're describing of the more educational aspects of that trip, that sounds very similar to what we do over here, um, akin to 4-H.
Yeah. Yeah, we got
Okay.
4-H around here too. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's more the kind of stuff that the
Yeah.
kids do over here at 4-H,
Yep.
seeing
Yep.
actual hands-on kind of aspects of whatever the type of culture is that they're wanting to pass on to the
Yeah,
kids. So,
4-H has always been big around here. In
okay.
fact, the county that we live in, there's a 4-H fairgrounds, and they would have the county fair every year, and there's a small comic book convention that happens in one of the buildings on the 4-H fairgrounds
Oh,
every
cool.
year. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Well, guys, that is our 4-H talk for this episode.
yes, well,
Thanks for tuning in. And so we are just about at the end of this story, I believe.
yeah,
Yeah, after the submarine is destroyed, that's pretty much the end of it because you have a panel here that has the Spectre in it. And in that
yeah. He
this is not
does.
a Spectre book, it's,
Right. I do like here though. I had to go back and read it because I almost kind of glossed over it there on the last page, because he takes out that submarine and then it's like suddenly he's throwing something off the boat that explodes. And I was like, I missed something here. No, he spies a freaking sea mine out in the ocean, and he grabs up a lifeboat and throws it at the mine, and the mine explodes. I thought that was kind of
Mhm.
cool too.
Kind of out of nowhere, but I
Yeah.
guess that's
Yeah.
just trying to emphasize the state of war. I
Yeah.
mean, we've had bombers, we've had
Yeah.
submarines, and now we have mines.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's a good knowing what's coming next. The next three stories that all kind of tie in together to a certain extent, yeah. Taken by itself, eh. It was,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. I just, it's very strange how this Superman really kind of walks back and forth between, especially at this time, because, for the first 15, 16 issues of Action Comics, it was very, mob,
hmm
racketeering, that kind of stuff. And then the Ultra Humanite comes in, it, it still takes a couple of appearances from the Ultra Humanite before it just kind of gets really like almost hardcore sci-fi.
right, right.
And now it's like he's stepping back and forth between, um in this issue, a war story,
hmm
and then eventually we get back into some really hardcore sci-fi again. And so yeah, I'm finding that when I start an issue and realize, oh, this is a war story, or just a mob story, it's I'm not as excited anymore. I just the when they just really dive into that sci-fi stuff, it's so good, it's so fun.
Well, now I will say this story and the next one are apropos for the month of November because November is the informally titled War Comics Month.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we're participating.
All right, there we go. This is our we should get a participation medal.
Our, well, yeah, everybody does nowadays, but
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there.
All right. Well, anything else you want to say about this one?
No, sir, I'm good.
All right, let's wrap it up then. I want to thank everyone for listening to this episode of the Superman Super Show. If you want to drop us a line, blah, blah, blah. If you want to drop us a line, ask us a question, or just provide some feedback in general, you can send an email to the Superman Super Show at gmail.com. You can also find us over on Twitter under the handle at Soups Super Show. Come join the fun over at the forum at forum.justanotherfanboy.com. All that's in the show notes. So it's, just grab it there. It's all there. So until next week, folks, my name is Steven, and that's Ed. And this was the Superman Super Show.
Bye.
Tra la la la. I don't know what that meant. All right, let me save my Audacity file. This next one, we're going to have some stuff to talk about in this next one. And by the way, for you and everybody watching, each one of these episodes we record tonight, I have a podcast recommendation.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, done with that one. Start the record. La 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 la. Okay.
I spilled some monster on me. Oh my god. Okay, I'm good. I keep getting this little thing up here that says my connection is unstable. I wish it would stop. Pay good money for this internet. All right, it went away. I'm happy now. I'm recording.
All right, you ready to go?
I'm ready.
You're listening to the Superman Super Show, episode 32, Europe at War, part 2. Hello, and welcome to the Superman Super Show. I'm a host. My name is Ed, and 1,000 miles over there to my left is another host, Mr. Steeven Orr.
I'll do.
All right. So, what kind of recommendations? What have you been listening to lately, Steeven?
There we go. Yeah, I'm gonna wait for this thing to come because you were like, come in, we're out. So
Okay.
all right. So yeah.
So, what have you been listening to lately?
I want to suggest another podcast, the ElfQuest audio movie.
Yes.
This is a 10-part audio
Familiar with that
drama.
one?
It's currently available on all the major podcast platforms, and it's a lot of fun. It's, if you are familiar with ElfQuest, season 1, which is up right now, the first 10 episodes. Basically, if, for example, I think really when I first encountered ElfQuest, it was these thick collections, and there were 4. The original quest, which was 20 issues, were collected into these 4 volumes. And the first volume was called Journey to Sorrow's End, and that's what this first season is. So with that,
so it's the first 5 issues or so.
Pretty much, yeah. It's pretty fun. There are a lot of commercials, though. You have to know that you're probably going to skip the first 10 minutes of each episode, and or 2 minutes, the first 2 minutes of each episode, and the last 2 to 5 minutes of each episode. And then there's probably a good 2 minutes right in the middle that has commercials. And which, I'm sure this was an expensive project. I know they did a Kickstarter for it. And there's some, Cree Summer, for example. She does one of the voices. She was Freddy from A Different World. She does a lot of animation voice work nowadays, but I'll always remember her as a Freddy from a Different World back in the 90s. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I would all 10 episodes are available. You can go out there and binge them and have some fun with them. Once you skip the commercials, they're really not, the episodes aren't that long, so you'll get through them pretty quickly.
Now, are you aware, staying on the ElfQuest theme, that there is an actual ElfQuest podcast as well?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to listen to it. I know I've run across it before.
Yeah, it's about 70, 80 episodes. It's not, they don't put them out very frequently now because there's not as much
Not a lot of
ongoing
new
with the
stuff.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
over the course of, if you start and listen, they started it when uh, that Stargazer's final or Stargazer's End or
Yeah.
whatever that.
The last one that came out was the Stargazers thing. I can't remember exactly what it's
Yeah,
called, but
they started with, I think, the series before that one
okay.
that dealt with Cutter. Uh, I don't want to say anything because there's a spoiler that's pretty easily
Yeah,
said
I'm not
about how that one ends. But
yeah, and
um,
I'm not a very, I have read the original Quest over and over and over.
mhm,
I think Siege at Blue Mountain came after that, and I
mhm.
know I've read that once or twice, and then I've kind of dipped
Yeah,
my toes here and there. ElfQuest was my first independent comic book, and I had no idea. You didn't really know what independent comics were back then. As far as I was concerned, it was a freaking comic book. I bought the first collection at a bookstore.
right.
So
Yeah, I understand. I think perhaps what you're alluding to is that the nostalgia factor for that initial
yeah,
series. Yeah. And then unless you're like, way big into elves or Windy Peony or something like that, you've read, on. But yeah, there's for me, there's a huge nostalgia factor
there,
for that
yeah,
first quest.
yeah,
So
me too. And once you get past, there's like the original Quest, Siege of Blue Mountain, Kings of the Broken Wheel, blah
Broken
blah
Wheel.
blah. There
Mhm.
at some point in there, she doesn't do a lot of the art,
Right,
and I think it's at that point that I was like, well,
right.
for me, it was like, what was the point? That was part of the draw for me, was just the way she drew these characters. And there's another, they Dark Horse put out these really big collections. That's what I'm rereading them digitally through the Dark Horse collections. That it was a
Okay.
great sale a couple of years back, and I bought up a whole bunch of them. But the original Quest, for example, is still in its black and white. They colorized it, of
Mhm.
course, when they reprinted it for Marvel on their Epic line.
Right.
But at some point, it does. They do start producing color books, and
It's
I
not the
think it's
same.
digital. It's digital colors, and
Yeah.
when digital colors first started to be a thing, I think a lot of
Yep.
digital color artists just really kind of overdid it. They could do
Um,
a whole bunch of fun stuff, and they just
did a whole bunch of fun
just
stuff.
did
Yeah.
just a whole, did a whole bunch of fun stuff, and so
Um,
yeah,
all of the all of that, except for the most recent two series, are available on their website to read for free.
yeah, yep,
Okay, you're
yeah. I've been
talking about having bought it to read it,
yeah,
but I
yeah,
mean all of it, and this is all of it, all the fan produced stuff, all of the
yep,
other different magazines, because there after a little while it splits and there's like two story branches, a daughter and a
yeah.
future, and yeah, so
Oh yeah, they do like the sea elves, and yeah, there's this
yeah,
whole
it's
sci-fi
just
future thing, and yeah, oh
yeah,
yeah,
it really
yeah,
good.
it got
But yeah,
crazy there for a while.
that original quest is the yeah. If you want to
Yeah,
read
and
Elf Quest, that's the one to read, and then just put it down and move on to
yeah,
the other things on your
yeah,
read list.
and it's I have done a number of episodes going through the issues of the original quest over on
Hmm.
Just Another Fanboy, and I haven't finished it because it may or may not be the subject of season 2 on Just Another Fanboy Presents when I get done with Death of Superman. But each one of those episodes, I let folks know, go to elfquest.com. You can read these for free. There, it's the official site.
Yeah.
Boom, just go. Then you can read along with me. Ooh. So yeah, I think that's pretty neat. You can read them online.
All righty. Are we
I think banter
bantered
complete.
for
Yeah,
the moment? Okay. We
shakunk.
have to save some for yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, we just rip through the last 2
We're
episodes. Yep.
out of banter.
Yep.
So today we're going to be looking at Europe at War Part 2, which appeared in Action Comics number 23, brought to us by Jerry Siegel as the writer scripter, Joe Shuster as the penciler. Yeah, and Paul Cassidy as the inker. Now, Action Comics 23 is cover dated April 1940 with an approximate sale date, thanks to Mike's Amazing World of Comics, of February 22nd, 1940. So, there for a little while, we got real close with those two dates, and now we're starting to stretch out the difference in between them a little bit more to the nowadays it's 2 months or 3 months, I think is what it standardly is. I forget
Yeah.
exactly. So, for those of you that have not read this story, why not? You need to go read. You need to go read it before you listen to the show. I mean, come on. That's what we're trying to do is trying to encourage you to read these stories. We are, so you should too. But if you haven't read the story, we are continuing to cover the ongoing war between, and this is also courtesy of Mike's Amazing World of Comics. This synopsis: the ongoing war between Galonia and Torin. Stephen, where in Europe are Galonia and Torin?
No idea. I'm assuming they're Eastern Bloc.
Okay, yeah, and I'll go ahead and throw out there that I was a geography major in college, and those countries don't exist. So, but that's okay. Maybe
Right.
they did or something. They almost sound like tribal names or
That's
uh,
the
barbarian names or something.
yeah.
Something like that.
That's the one thing DC Comics has always done
Oh yeah.
versus Marvel. Marvel has always put real places in their books, and DC has always made up cities. So whenever I'm reading a DC book and they mention like New York City, I just immediately get thrown out of the story.
You're like, what?
That's a
You're
real
not in New
place.
York
That's not
City.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really. What? So Clark Kent is interviewing the leader of Galonia, General Lupo. Lupo informs Kent that a temporary truce has been called in order to negotiate. When the truce is broken by the Galonians, Lupo claims it was an accident. Suspecting otherwise, Kent follows Lupo as Superman. Now, Lupo, that's kind of a take on Wolf, isn't it?
Yeah,
Lupo.
pretty much.
In a hidden cave, Lupo communicates with an unseen leader, Luthor, or Luther, as I say it. But somebody in a movie once famously called him Luthor.
Luthor.
Superman learns of a plan to attack a neutral country and confronts Lupo. Before the general can expose his unseen boss, green rays strike and kill him. Superman stops the attack on the neutral country, and as Kent, he reveals his information to the warring countries. Worried by Kent's knowledge of his involvement, Luthor captures Kent's partner Lois Lane. Lois gets a message to Clark bringing Superman to Luthor's dirigible base to rescue her. I really like that base too. Superman is subjected to Luthor's green ray, which weakens Superman. The Man of Steel is able to escape, however, and destroy the dirigible. Only he and Lois appear to escape when it crashes to Earth. With Luthor out of the picture, the warring countries declare an armistice. Clark delivers the story to the Daily Planet and returns home with Lois. So, my co-host Stephen, what did you think?
A lot more, a bit more fun than the
Mhm.
previous issue. You'll also notice the Daily Planet.
Planet, yes,
They,
yes, I made a note
I
of that.
looked all over the internet for this. This is the issue that they changed it from the Daily Star to the Daily Planet, and there's no explanation given. It's just the Daily Planet.
But also, what is Action Comics 23 Big Four in Superman mythos?
This is the first chronological appearance of Lex Luthor.
That's right. Now, I'll go ahead and throw out that in some lookings that I saw, it is possible that you can argue that point. Now, in story, Luthor does make the comment later on that we meet again,
Yep.
meaning this had to come first before that. But if
Chronologically.
if you drill down and look at the release dates for the
Hmm.
books, it's quite possible that the next book that we talk about, Superman issue 4, came out before, containing the second appearance of
Yep.
Luthor came out
I
prior
I
to Action Comics 23, but only by a week. That's why you don't really know for sure, because that's just too close
yeah,
together to, you know.
right.
So, whatever, if it's that close.
Yeah,
And
I only get this yeah.
good.
I wrote that down as well. I only got it from two different sources, Mike's Amazing World of Comics and DCFandom.com. They both say pretty much the same thing, which is that Superman #4 was on the stands a week before Action Comics #23, but the story in Superman 4 takes place after the story in Action Comics 23. So Action Comics 23 is the first chronological appearance of Lex Luthor. Superman #4 is the first published appearance of Lex Luthor.
So there we go.
That's what I kind of, I don't want to say dug up, because really I just looked at two different websites.
You just right, yeah, right.
Yeah, but yeah, I thought that was really interesting, because they also mentioned on I think it was dcfandom.com, and we could talk about this more when we talk about Superman issue #4, because
Mhm.
that's where this note is that while the events in Action Comics 23 take place on what is now known as Earth 2, the events in
Okay.
Action Comics, or the events in Superman #4, take place in Earth 2A. It's yeah, it's an
Wow.
alternate version of Earth 2, and it's in the official, like, Crisis on Infinite Earths index of worlds. There's Earth 2 and Earth 2A, and at that point I was just, because there's just certain tiny differences, and I just, whatever, I don't even think about that anymore.
I didn't really notice anything that made it
No,
and all of that stuff about the dates, of course, we
yeah,
had
that's, yeah,
reading this because the source we're reading it from had Action 23,
yeah,
and then, Superman 4, the
yeah,
first story, so, I mean, one just flowed into the other,
yeah,
so, now, having spoken on the previous, Action Comics splash panel, this one fits because it's a scene related to, um,
yeah,
bombing in the
yep,
city where he and Lois are. So this one fits. Now, this particular scene, I don't know where, who knows? They were out walking around and this
yeah.
started, and so that's this scene. I mean, but yeah, this one actually thematically makes some kind of sense as opposed to that one from the last issue. It was just
Yeah.
weirdness. Um, Something else I also noticed. I don't know that all of the read this way arrows were necessary in the
Not at
story.
all.
There is
Not at
one
all.
place where they didn't have one, and I thought one could have really helped. But otherwise, I'm like, the panels are the same size,
Yeah.
and they're on the same line. And we know in America we read left to right,
Yeah.
top to bottom, left to right. So yeah, I don't know why all of a sudden, every now
Yeah.
and then we would see
Just
one.
in this issue, it's like suddenly these, I don't know, these
Every
little,
other page has 1 or 2 arrows to assist, and I'm like, "Dog, you don't
yeah.
look, I'm not a boob, okay, I know how to read a comic book, come on."
Yeah.
But, after
I
that go ahead.
well, I can only, because when I doodle around when it comes to putting together like a um podcast artwork, when I
Mhm.
discover how to do something new in Photoshop, a lot of times I will continue to use that same thing, that from that moment forward I create, until I learn something else new. So maybe that's just, he just kind of, you know what? I bet I put a little arrow in here and make it look like, oh, all nice and neat. And so then
Yeah,
he just did it for the rest of the issue.
I guess, I don't know. I noticed two in probably this story. It starts and then it continues on. Um, the previous story, even though it was about war, we didn't see too many people die that we know of.
Mhm.
In this story, though, we start to see some people dropping.
Yeah.
Um, right off the bat, you have this in panel unnumbered because they stopped numbering now. The artillery crew gets blown up on the first page.
Yep.
Rather, in a way, graphically. I think I was like, wow, that's no doubt what happened to those guys.
Yep.
And I guess because it's war, it's okay. I mean, we have seen things with the mob and with the bad guys and stuff that you can only assume. A
Yeah.
car goes off a cliff, and you're like, yeah, they're gone, but you don't
Yep.
see anything. You don't see a smashed up car, or you know. And this was pre-comics code, so I mean, they could theoretically show that stuff if they wanted to. There was nothing, no quote unquote rules against it. But
We
um,
did have that mobster guy. I don't remember which issue it was, but both Superman and the mob guy were out on the street, and a cop suddenly runs up
mhm,
waving his gun, and Superman's like, "I'm out of here," and then the other guy starts running too, and the cop guns him down,
shoots him. Yeah.
and that was, I mean, there wasn't any blood, but they drew the reaction of him getting shot the way it was drawn. And I don't think this was what they meant for it to look like, but it looked like he got shot in the throat because of the way that
Mhm.
they drew it. I thought, but yeah, typically not a lot of that kind of stuff in these so far.
So let's see. Moving on through here, Superman is witness to potentially a neutral representative being killed as they're going to oversee the talks of the two warring sides when his car is blown up. And actually, um, Superman has a camera because it's
Yeah.
going to be a momentous occasion, and so he's
Yep.
going to take pictures. And he actually took pictures of the car being destroyed.
Yep.
I assume it must have been a bomb planted on the car because you don't see like a
Yeah.
plane, or it's not an artillery shell or anything like that. So because of that, obviously one side, whichever side, feels that the other side is responsible for killing the negotiator, meaning that the other side must not want to negotiate in goodwill. We'll just keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
Forget all this armistice and whatever. So we'll just keep going. And so that's what happens. The brief stop to the hostilities is very brief. Superman follows Lupo, and because he's talking suspiciously about Clark Kent and Lois.
Yep.
Superman overhears, but he doesn't overhear by hanging on a ledge or
Mhm.
anything like that. He just overhears in a building with his super hearing.
Super here. Yep.
So he follows Lupo, and to me, it was kind of interesting. Several things here, all in a row on this page. First, that Lupo just disappears. That's kind of cool. Then you have the hypnotic lights on the slab, or the rock face that's different looking from all the other rock
Yeah.
faces in the cave that the man disappeared into.
Yep.
But then the lights go away, and the rock starts emulating a face, like it protrudes out and starts talking to Lupo, who I guess now is under some sort of trance because of the lights. So he's more suggestible now. So he got like the hypno whammy, and then whoever is responsible is talking to him to give him further orders, or whatever he wants out of him. And that's when Superman uh, appears to Lupo. Now we've seen that Superman is in the vicinity this whole time, but those three things back to back, just that was kind of cool because they were kind of different um, tropes, I guess, if you want to call them that.
Well, it really, it just went from your basic kind of war slash espionage story to bam, hardcore sci-fi, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah. And here is where in the summary that Superman confronts Lupo, and we see the green eyes, which anyone that's read Superman for any length of time is already put in mind of something,
Yeah.
but that's not, I don't think at all what this is. Although they could easily say, that this was the first appearance of that, but I don't
Yeah.
believe it is.
No,
Uh,
it is kind of funny though that it's the green
gr-
ray,
right.
and
Yeah.
it shows up later that where they have the green ray guns. So
And I don't know, maybe later on,
yeah,
maybe in contemplating,
they
well,
retcon it back or yeah.
what color do we make this? Well, I remember in the early stories he felt weakness because of this
Yep.
green ray, so let's make kryptonite green.
Yeah,
And I don't know,
maybe.
because you have what right now you have 8 colors. Maybe you only have 4 colors right now, and then by the time that kryptonite is invented, you have 8 or 16 colors
Yeah.
to pick from. So, um, moving on along, Superman escapes a trap. He takes out a cadre of bombers that are flying one to the other. I don't even know if it tells us. Unidentified bomber. Oh, these are the bombers that are heading to the neutral nation to get
Yeah.
somebody else yet involved in the war. And because of the direction the bombers are going, Superman really doesn't care whose they are. They're
Yep.
just going somewhere that they're not supposed to. So he takes them out. And then
He
um
he does mention as he jumps into one of the planes and throws the guy out. So, there's somebody else that
well,
he's
yeah, there you
killed.
go.
Odd, your uniform is entirely unfamiliar. So I took from that whoever is in these planes are from neither of the two nations that are at war.
Okay. But they're hoping that they are assumed to be one side or
Yeah.
the other
Yeah,
in what they're
just
doing.
just from the fact that the bombs, yeah.
Right. Um, the next page is where we see Luthor for the first time with a full pate of red hair
Full pate of red hair. And
also.
yeah, and I ran into a little. I don't know if you ran into it as well, but a little bit of information about how he kind of went from a full head of hair to being bald after these appearances over these next few issues. I guess he shows up again in the strip, and the guy who drew him in the strip, which wasn't Joe Shuster at that point, drew him bald. And didn't realize he was doing it wrong. And there's apparently a bunch of different stories about why he drew him bald. There's like Lupo, for example, is bald in this
Mhm.
story, and that maybe the artist, just looking back for reference, thought that guy was Luthor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was some pretty interesting stuff that I ran across, and then apparently they just at some point after that they just made him bald.
Okay.
It wasn't until
Very
the Silver Age, wasn't it, when they made it part of his,
mhm.
Superboy blew out the fire and it blew his hair off his head.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very distinctive part of Luthor
Yeah,
is that for forever, as far as we know, unless you really go back in Superman's history, he's always appeared bald.
oh yeah,
It's, you
yep,
know. We also see that his base, this giant dirigible, is suspended beneath it via way too many cables, are a huge platform.
yeah,
And on this platform is what appears to be a miniature city.
yeah,
It's multiple buildings. It's not just one building. So there's this small city on a platform suspended beneath a giant dirigible, and a dirigible is a blimp, and that's Luther's hideout way
yeah,
up high,
yeah,
which I thought was just this is a better hideout by just a little bit than the hideout that he uses in the next story, which is also another cool one.
yeah. But
But I,
yeah,
I
that
like
was pretty
this one
cool
better.
too.
This one is cool because you can launch airplanes off of this. It's like
Yeah,
it's like the prototype helicarrier. And
Yeah.
helicarriers have always been awesome to me. I've always
Yeah.
dug those.
Yeah.
So we see, huh, someone is in a car and they are way too close to my house.
Oh, I hate that.
Hmm. Um, so we see Luthor, and he has had kidnapped Lois Lane. So he is confronting Lois Lane here. She finds a guard that she's able to influence because he is not under Luthor's control like all the others, and she says, "Hey, you'll do something for." She kind of hypnotizes him. She says, "You'll do something for me, or I'll tell on you."
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
gives him the narc whammy, um, and he says, "Well, no, you can't tell because then Luthor will kill me." She's
Yeah.
like, "Okay, well, here's what I need you to do," and she gets him when he when he gets off work, when his
Yeah.
shift is done.
He
Uh,
clocks out. Patunk.
yeah, she gets him to do something, and that is to give a note to Clark about where she is. And the
Yeah.
whole it takes this way out there thing and then just makes it, like very pedestrian.
Right.
It's you know, it's
Yeah.
it's a henchman for the evil guy, and when he gets off work that day, just take a message to my
Yeah.
friend, and it's like,
He's got
wow,
his lunch
okay,
pail with him, and
yeah. So and this is something that night he leaves the note. Well, Superman doesn't get it until the next day. Well, he wakes up because
yeah, that's right.
the dude wakes him, or
Yeah, dude creeps into his room
whatever.
basically. Yeah, while he's
But
sleeping.
this all seems to occur at night, but we don't see Superman. It says minutes later, but when Superman is flying off, it's day.
Yeah.
But when the dude leaves the dirigible and goes to Clark's room, it's night.
Yeah.
So I don't, anyways, that's probably me being too nitpicky. Again, I need to suspend disbelief a little bit more. Apparently, it's kind of getting in my way. I'm tripping on it here. But Superman no, excuse me. He jumps up
Jumps.
to the dirigible, colossal dirigible. He describes it. When I first read that, I thought it was collapsible. I was like, why is the? Oh, it's colossal. Sorry. Okay. Um, here now in the next story, his jumping is, or maybe this story
He
isn't,
does
but
some crazy stuff in that the contest thing with his
with
jumping.
just some jumping. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he goes up to the fortress that Luthor has, rescues Lois, um, but rather than just getting her and leaving, he gives into Luthor's. I want to test you. I want to see if I can be here. And again, it's repeated, so that
Yeah.
becomes a theme here.
Luther's got some
Um,
weird thing going on.
yeah, I guess he wants to put his science against
Yeah.
Superman's science. Whatever it is about
It's
Superman, he wants to.
yeah, it's like right off the bat, he feels this need to prove that he's better than Superman. And
Yeah,
if that means that he lets the guy go at the end, he's he's got to prove that he's better than Superman.
but all of
He's
the
not,
ways
but
that he tries to beat Superman is with this green ray, which
yeah,
we saw earlier really doesn't do anything to him. But
yeah.
Luthor is convinced it can. Let's see, does he actually name it? I think here. Let's see. Oops, bear with me, guys. No, just powerful ray. Yeah, he doesn't
I think
doesn't
they
really name
may
it anything.
say Green Ray at some point, but I think
Ooh,
beyond that,
okay.
yeah,
Um, cool panel here where now Superman is running with Luthor and Lois because he has messed up the ship here,
yeah,
uh, and he's holding Lois,
yeah.
right? She's like
He's
you would a baby. She's
yeah, he's kind
sitting
of
on his
yeah.
arm.
It's like he's turned his arms into chairs.
Yeah, for her, He's got the, like, you guys can't see, but he's got the arm like this way, with something. But for Luthor, he's got the arm like this,
Yeah.
and Luthor is sitting. It's really odd that he's not. It was drawn to where they're both not being held the same way. They're being held opposite
Yeah.
for whatever reason. Yeah, that jumped out at me when I saw that. Next, Superman he destroys the dirigible holding the headquarters. It falls. Uh,
And that's the end of Luthor, is what he says.
yep.
Or Lois says. One of them says.
Takes proof to the two armies that here's the person that was responsible for continuing your beef. So you really don't have a beef, right? And they decide, yeah, you're right. We don't have a beef. Clark submits yet another outstanding story because, of course, he's in the middle of everything.
That's right.
He either saw it or he did it or caused it to happen or something. And the final, actually, the final two panels, the very final panel is a drawing of Sandman telling you to buy Adventure Comics. But the final story panel is Lois and Clark sitting on a bench, and she's bemoaning who and what he is, being a powder puff, and whatever else her issues are.
Yeah.
And that is Action 23.
Yeah. Another thing that I don't know if this is Schuster's doing, but along with those weird with the freaking arrows, all these sideways, not sideways, but kind of the up and down text boxes that the text doesn't fill the entire box, so he puts like a couple little diamond shapes or a little
just
eye
fills,
with a circle next to it or something.
Fills the box.
Those are just weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
Found them weird.
Well, it's different.
Yeah.
From, and we've had, I don't know, we've had 30-ish, read 30-ish stories, and, all of a sudden the arrows come out, filling the text boxes when there are bigger text boxes than there are words for.
It makes you wonder if it was really Joe Shuster.
I suppose. I mean, everything that I saw said that this was Schuster and not Cassidy. So.
Yeah, me too. But maybe somebody, ghost drew it.
Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. I enjoyed this one. Again, I think these 4 stories that we're talking about tonight, they just get better and better. So we have gone from just your basic war / espionage story in Action 23. We continue with that story, or in Action 22, we continue with that story in this issue, but then they add the whole Luthor element. We don't get his first name yet. And from what I understand, when we do finally get his first name, it's Alexei. And of course, he's got to be a ginger. That hurts a little. And yeah, we don't, he's just, I love how they just create these villains that they're only motivated. They just want to take over the world. That's, all right.
Well, I mean, is there any greater goal for a villain than And
and the fact that this is now Superman's second, for lack of a better term, supervillain. And it's another super genius. So, it's the whole Superman as brute strength. And rather than put him up against somebody that he's just going to duke it out with, we've got to give him more of a challenge. So it's more brains versus brawn. But yeah, liked it. I enjoyed it. It was fun.
I agree that the story is starting to ratchet up, and I like how we're starting to see connections now between a previous and a current, and then the next. So there's starting to be some, even if it is like in essence instantaneous continuity, we're still starting to see the fact that they are either thinking ahead or they're looking back and connecting it that way, whichever. Now this is, I think they're thinking ahead because of how many connections there
Yeah.
are here. All four of these stories that we read for tonight are connected.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's not a, that's not a chancy kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
That's purposeful.
Yep.
So I do like that because I'm a big continuity fan. I
Oh yeah.
like the fact that they remember that the person did this or said this, or even if it's just a throwaway,
Yeah.
it shows that somebody took the time to read that and they're like, oh yeah, I need to, I can go ahead and use that. I'll say that, and so it's,
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to do every story you tell doesn't have to be a 6-issue arc. You can do a series of done in one issues, but certain little things, connect them together that may not be part of the bigger story, but yeah, somebody makes in issue 6, something that in 3 that really connects them. And that's kind of where the fun lies,
well,
is then
I look
finding
at,
those little moments.
I always look at continuity as being my reward for sticking with your product because
Mhm.
let's be honest,
Yeah.
there are going to be times that your product sucks, and my reward for even sticking through the suck is the fact that there is now a continuity and I'm going to remember even when it was bad, you still remembered
Yep.
that and used that in some way in the future, down the road. And that's,
Yeah.
to me, continuity is my reward
Yeah.
for doing all that over, particularly over extended periods of time,
Yeah.
several years of sticking with your product. It's like, I recognize that you have read all of these, so here you go. Here's something to chew on, to try to connect, to try to remember, so
Yeah. And for me, the fun continuity things are stuff like, not something that you run across 30 issues in, and you run across something that just suddenly just makes no sense because you didn't read the first issue. It's more like somebody that shows up, and it's like, well, that's the same mail letter carrier that was in issue 1.
mhm,
You don't have to know that reading that issue, and somebody new could read the issue, and they just met the letter carrier, and they don't know that they've been
right,
in 3 or 4 other issues, but because you have stuck with it, that. I drive my wife crazy a lot when we watch some of the Marvel movies. Sometimes I'll be like, do you recognize that person?
right,
They were
yep,
in like 4 movies ago pushing that broom.
yep.
So it's like,
Oh,
yeah, but isn't it cool?
they
She
remembered
didn't get
and
it.
they
Yeah.
used that person
Yep.
again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should get it. And I was, as I'm reading The Death of Superman, I'm at the part in that the I'm in the funeral for a friend, and I just read the issue of the actual funeral. And there's a few instances throughout the funeral where we meet certain people that, reading this, I've never met before, but I can't help but wonder, they'll mention like yeah, that time Superman, saved me when that building collapsed. It's like, is that something that actually happened in,
Right.
60 issues ago, that somebody who's been reading this whole time is going to be like, yep, that's the guy. And, I find that kind of stuff interesting, that, me having not read those 60 issues, I don't need to know that. But had I read those 60 issues, I would have enjoyed that just a little bit more,
Right. It would have been a reward for
Yeah.
doing that.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I also want to point out real quick before we wrap it up that Doug mentioned a while back that he also is enjoying the ElfQuest podcast. He mentioned that in the
Ah,
chat.
yes. A man of taste. All
Yes.
right. We do want to thank
Doug and I,
simpatico. Is that the German
that's
word?
right.
Simpatico. Yeah. Okay. Kidneys.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah, this is where my kidneys are. Piper
We
Cody
do.
says,
Oh,
John Henry
hey.
Irons. I
What
love
about
John
John?
Henry Irons.
I was gonna say, what about John Henry Irons? I know who he
Well,
is,
that's
but
that is a that's a guy that, when you first meet him, he's somebody that Superman saves, and
oh,
then he
okay. And
shows
then he
up. Yeah,
becomes
yep,
okay. Yeah,
yep.
he is going to play a pretty pivotal part in the death of Superman here at some
Yeah.
point, I believe, if I
Yeah.
recall. So
Looking forward to getting to those issues.
I think he's still around even now,
Oh yeah.
doing
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, isn't he?
Yeah. I'm reading the stuff on the app, and they're now a month behind, and he's in one of the Action Comics issues. So
Yeah, it's not he's not like an
and
all
his
the
daughter.
time or something, but yeah, he can jump in there and help, I think,
Yeah.
sometimes. So
Yep. Yep. Yep.
all right, you good?
I'm good.
All right, we want to thank everybody for listening to this episode of the Superman Super Show. If you want to drop us a line, ask a question, or just provide feedback in general, you can send an email to the Superman Super Show at gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter under the handle at Soups Super Show, or come join the fun over on the forum at forum.justanotherfanboy.com. All the links will be in the show notes, so don't worry about grabbing those. The guy I thought Steven was talking about with the building falling on him. Oh,
Yeah.
did that happen to John Henry
It's
Irons?
it. Well, I think he fell off of construction work, and he fell girder. And it's funny because when I use the that I don't just think of someone who was at the funeral that mentioned Superman saving them, and I couldn't think of the actual examples from the issue. So a building fell on him, and I was thinking of John Henry Irons. So
Okay.
yeah, that's kind of funny that he picked that out. Yep.
Alrighty, so folks, until next week, I'm Ed. That is Steven, and this was the Superman Super Show. Ciao.
Bye. Okay, let's stop this recording and save it. And I'm actually Steven's got to pee, so
Okay.
I'm gonna step away for just a moment. Drinking a lot of water recently, so
Good. Supposed to.
exactly, and it's something that I don't do a lot of, and so I'll be right back.
All right. So Piper Cody, do we follow each other or interact on Twitter or anything like that? Do you use a different handle, or is this the only place that we've run into each other? Ah, okay. Gotcha. Is there any significance to Piper Cody here on YouTube? Yes, Doug, I do too. I think Steven's been listening to it also. Um, I've always been a fan of old time radio, and being able to pair it up with a character that I like and everything. It's a lot of fun to listen to. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, take it easy. Steven's back on, guys.
Dad's back. Everybody stop. I muted the microphone so you wouldn't hear my dad groan as I got up and then sat back
Oh,
down.
is that what? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you guys talking about the Radio Superman? Yeah, I started. What is it? The Dragon's Fang? Is that what where we're at right now on that?
Uh,
I need to get caught up.
the most recent?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
on
think so.
Radio Superman. Yeah, I started that and then I haven't. I got distracted with other things. I need to go back to it. I need to finish it. I love. I think we talked about last time that once I started listening to the Radio Superman podcast, that I'm now hearing that when I'm reading these stories. I'm hearing that, like I'm listening to the old radio program.
Yeah, old time radio is always. I
The
was
Dragon's
telling
Teeth.
them that it's always been something that has fascinated me. And I think in a lot of ways it's such an awesome precursor to what we sit down there in front of that box and do
Yep.
now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can just imagine a particular time of night, a particular week of night, everyone gathering around a radio
Yeah.
to listen to whatever humor, sci-fi, action adventure, western, suspense, whatever it is, depending on what you wanted to do.
Yeah. And it's fun to listen to those and get those moments where, you know, something visual is happening, but you can't see it. So they have to incorporate something into the audio so that you can, you're seeing it with your ears. And some of those were really good at it and some of those were really bad at it,
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
but yeah.
And even now, I maintain that no amount of money, no amount of CGI can beat what I see in my head. It
Yep.
it doesn't it
Yep.
doesn't matter. So, you
that's
know,
that's why I think whenever they make a movie out of a novel that is sci-fi or
yeah,
fantasy, it's
eh,
somebody's going to be disappointed
yeah,
because they did not put on the screen what they saw in their head when they read that book.
that there's a lot that you can do, and a lot of it is cool to see. But I think everybody somewhere along the way is going to have a scene that they're like, yeah,
Yeah,
it
that's not.
that one just missed.
Yeah,
So
it's not how it happened in my head.
all right, I'm recording, ready to go.
I am recording too. So, all right. You're listening to the Superman Super Show, episode number 33, The Challenge of Luthor. Hello and welcome to the Superman Super Show. I'm a host. My name is Steeven, and 1,000 miles over there to my right is another host, Mr. Ed Moore.
Howdy.
Hi, Ed, the Golden Age Guru. Ed, the Golden Age Guru Moore.
Yeah, I am far from being a guru.
Is that
That is distinctly tongue in cheek. Although I will
Yes, I
say,
thought.
between this and another podcast that I'm listening to that I've been reading along with, which is about Golden Age Batman, it definitely has me interested in reading more of the other heroes that are around now that have gotten their start around this time that Batman and
Yeah,
Superman have.
yeah,
Wonder Woman, Flash, Hawkman, Green Lantern, Sandman, Wildcat, Adam. I mean, just the whole JSA, which
yeah,
is I've always been a fan of the JSA, and they're in the process of coming back right now. So all of those characters, and between action and detective comics, well, you see a fair number of those. Add a couple
yeah,
more titles, and you've got like the first 8 or 10 big time superheroes that DC had. So
yep.
I've already done all of the Golden Age Doctor Fate for myself, and yeah, so I'm
Yeah,
really starting to get interested in Golden Age DC.
yeah. I got that first. Just recently got that first Golden Age Batman
Mm,
collection, and
yeah.
I've been meaning to dig into that. And so you'll have to, what? Tell me what's the name of the podcast. I'm going to forget. I'm going to ask you at some point on Twitter to remind me. What
And
do you
that's
remember the
good
name?
because I don't know that I can
Okay.
remember it correctly. I believe it's Become a Bat.
That sounds familiar. I remember you talking about it on the forum.
I think it's something like that. Yeah, and um, I am up to like Batman 7, and Detective like 58, 59, 60, some around in there. And I believe they're a couple or three Batmans up with another set of 3 or 4 detectives. So they're up,
Mm, okay.
they'll be up almost by now to Batman 10 and probably in the 70 to 75 issue range for Detective Comics for stories, because each episode what they do is they take a Detective Comic strip and one of the strip out of the Batman, whatever Batman issue they're up to, and they talk about those 2 stories in one episode. Oh, is that the new one?
That sucks.
Oh,
That's her. I don't know if you can see her.
yep,
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
see it.
Okay, I'll let you down. Good Lord.
Oh, oh goodness,
She
not a
is
fan of
spicy.
picky uppy.
She is spicy.
Uh, so
Legend of
Stephen,
Batman.
do you have a podcast recommendation for us?
I actually do, and it's funny that we started talking about Batman because it's the Batman Audio Adventures
Okay.
is the podcast I'm going to recommend. This was actually something I just stumbled upon. I'm always a day late and a dollar short. I've often joked in my head that whatever podcast I do, it should have been called Day Late and a Dollar Short, because the books
Oh.
I read, everything I come across, I always find out. I'm like, hey, look at this thing I discovered. Yeah, we've been watching that for
Yeah.
3 years,
That,
buddy.
that came
You
out
know,
last year, but
so
okay,
yeah.
good. Yeah.
But this was something they put out on HBO Max. It is audio. You can watch the videos on HBO Max, but there's nothing going on there. They have like a background, and or you can listen to them through the app. But season 1, which is 10 episodes, was put out on all the major platforms. Season 2, which is wrapped up, I'm assuming will be coming out to all the major podcast platforms soon. But it's audio drama, Batman. It's a lot of fun. It's very, I don't want to say it's silly or it's a comedy, but it is very somewhat tongue in cheek. Most of the voice cast are like ex Saturday Night Live people. Jeffrey Wright does the voice of Batman, who he's got an awesome voice. You got Rosario Dawson as Catwoman. Chris Parnell is the narrator. You got Melissa Villasenor as Robin. Seth Meyers is on there as Jack Ryder. Brett Spiner plays the Joker.
Okay.
Bobby Moynihan, the Penguin. Kenan Thompson, Commissioner Gordon. So, just hearing that, Kenan Thompson is the voice of Commissioner Gordon. You're never going to take Commissioner Gordon very seriously on this show if Kenan
Right.
Thompson's doing that voice, because
Yeah, really.
I don't think he can say anything that doesn't sound like a joke, because he's just he's very funny. Jason Sudeikis is on there as the mayor. Brooke Shields is on there. Tim Meadows, Fred Armisen. I'm literally only 3 episodes in to the first season, the first 10 episodes, and it's very fun. It's a fun podcast to listen to, and it's done very well. It sounds great, and it's a lot of fun.
Did you know they did a comic adaptation of that?
Yeah,
DC?
the
Oh, okay.
first or at least one issue I know is on DC
Yeah,
Universe.
that one came out in May. I thought that I had seen that there was an ongoing that had just or is about to start
Yeah,
as well. So
yeah, and it's written by a lot of these folks that do the voices. Some of those,
okay.
because some of those, like the SNL people, they're writers as well as performers, and so yeah, it's really fun.
Doug, the my wife is a Wonder Woman fan. Now, having said that, there is no way on any planet that I could possibly afford to purchase Sensation Comics. That is, or even the vast majority, the first volume of Wonder Woman. No. So to read those books, this is the way here that you said.
Yeah,
Not necessarily. I think I've seen War Years books for those 3, but these big golden age books, compilations that they've started putting out, I hope they start doing that with others of the characters, but in that, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. They've got the big three. That may be all that they do. But
You ready?
for the vast majority, let me stop and throw this out there also. Terry is as much a pet person as I am, Stephen, and she thought that the newest addition to the family was pretty there.
She's a tuxedo cat, is what they.
And that's I believe that is Terry's favorite
Yeah.
marking of cat. I don't know, is tuxedo really a breed, or is that however that goes? But Doug, uh, 90% of my comic book readings have been Marvel, so DC is far and away just a huge blind spot for me.
Yeah.
Going back, here we go, making another appearance. Not quite as fussy an appearance as the first time, but
Yeah.
oh wow, not happy.
Right? She's spicy, isn't she?
Yeah,
You can hear that?
yeah. But the golden age, and plus two,
All right.
Marvel's golden age just has a, well, I mean, they weren't even Marvel, although this wasn't really necessarily DC at this time either yet. But Marvel's equivalent books have just a completely different feel to them than what a lot of these do for DC. I'm already familiar with that for Marvel from years and years and years of experience. So DC's golden age and hopefully into the silver age is really starting to draw my attention. Every year at the beginning of the year, I make a list of 2 or 3 or 4 reading projects that I would like to get through over the course of the year. Not that I really have room between keeping up with a lot of the contemporary stuff and reading for the way too many podcasts that I do. But I do like to just, give more goals that I never get to accomplish, just like the rest of us do. I'm really starting to lean this year to starting some manner of read into, because I'll never be able to read through, of DC, starting with these initial Golden Age appearances. I was actually today I went down a rabbit hole of first appearances. What did I look at? First appearances for characters starting in 1939, and so a lot of these names that I threw out and a lot of the characters we've seen referenced in action and that I've run across in detective are on that list. And I was looking at that thinking, how can I pick up these books? How can I pick, because the actual books are just way out of my price range, of course. So I think that's what I'm going to do this year is or next year, 23, is do some golden age DC. Used to be tough for me to read, but I've read enough now that the golden age is it's a lot more palatable to me.
Yeah, it is a shame. I hope they do. Like I would love them to do the Green Lantern and the Flash and
Hawkman.
Hawkman and Green Arrow and all those. Yeah, we'd like to see a lot of that stuff.
Particularly those characters that were in the JSA, Sandman, the Atom, the box, the not the Shrinky Atom, the other Atom, Wildcat. Who else? Johnny Thunder.
Was Black Canary? Was she part of the? Was she a Golden Age?
I think that's debatable.
Yeah.
She wasn't in any Golden Age that I've really seen, but once she started appearing in the Justice League, they made a connection back. She did, I believe. Now, I am not the expert on this by any means, but there's a book that started in the Golden Age called All-Star Comics.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the JSA started. It ended, or it stopped, and then in the middle 70s, I think, yes, the Spectre. In the middle 70s, they started it up again at the original numbering, wherever they left off. When that All-Star Comics started going, I believe Black Canary was a member then, which kind of retconned her as being a golden age. Then you have this whole mother-daughter changing dimensions, which one is she kind of thing too, because apparently you have this Earth 1, Earth 2 argument. Wonder Woman is there, isn't there? I think Black Canary is a replacement for Wonder Woman as an original female member, depending on. So yeah. Only getting into the Golden and Silver Age books lately, never enough time. Yeah, never enough time ever.
Never
And
enough time.
unfortunately, the more I read, the more I want to read.
Yep.
So it's gotten
Yeah.
it's gotten pretty rough.
All right. Banter complete.
Yes.
All right. So today we're looking at the challenge of Luthor, which is the first story, which is the first story.
You got to throw up your fingers. Like, yeah.
It's the first story appearing in Superman #4. This was written by Jerry Siegel with art by Paul Cassidy. It's the only credits I could find.
Mm-hmm.
Superman 4 has a cover date of spring 1940. According to Mike's Amazing World of Comics, it has a on sale date of February 15th, 1940.
Which makes it what?
It
came out 1 week.
The week before Action Comics 23, which we talked about, just not that long ago live, but for those listening at home,
about a week or so ago. Yeah.
All right. So let me tell you what happened in this issue. This synopsis comes from Mike's Amazing World of Comics. Clark Kent is assigned to investigate an earthquake that has shaken Metropolis. Professor Martinson has developed a new weapon that caused the quake during a test of the machine. When Clark visits Martinson's lab, he meets one of Luthor's henchmen. He tries to trail the man back to Luthor, but Luthor destroys the man's plane by remote. Superman goes to the army camp to guard the machine against theft, as Luthor has already kidnapped Martinson. After his men are defeated, Luthor issues a challenge to Superman. Superman agrees to compete against his nemesis in tests of speed, strength, and resistance to injury. Luthor is forced to concede when Superman bests his every invention. Martinson is released and Luthor leaves the battlefield. The contest was merely a distraction, though, as Luthor's henchmen were given time to steal the earthquake machine while Superman was busy. The master criminal uses the machine and begins blackmailing the world. Superman learns from Martinson where Luthor is hiding. He leaves to confront his foe, but is temporarily bested by the earthquake machine. Recovering quickly, Superman is able to demolish the device, but Luthor escapes. Martinson kills himself to prevent another device from being made. Ed, what'd you think about this one?
Good stuff, man. Continuation of the Luthor story from the previous 2 Action Comics. Although maybe it wasn't supposed to be, but it was. It is.
So. Yeah, this is because they we talked about that. I think already. I think Luthor does say in this one, "We meet again" or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I didn't have many notes because it was just. I do want to ask a question. Go ahead.
I really gotta love a villain who here's what they do. They get some kind of device that is capable of destroying the world or cities and uses it to hold the world ransom. You just gotta love a character like that. That's what they do,
And they sit around like this and
say
that they are evil.
Yeah. I didn't spend 4 years in evil school to be called Doctor. Well, I don't remember the line now. I said it wrong.
Yeah, that's okay. We're there with you. We know the reference. Panel 15. Are we going to count that as a hanging? By Superman?
I think we should.
I mean, he reached out and he reached out to grab himself to stop himself from falling. Okay.
And this guy I think we're going to count that as a hanging from a ledge.
Okay.
Which how many
the
is
only
that?
one in these 4 issues.
Yeah.
That's the only one in these 4 issues.
But
overall,
how many?
it's 1, 2, 3. Let's see, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's the 13th time in what is this? 33 issues,
Nice.
33 stories. So
But this guy here, this dude that works for Luthor that's posing as Martinson, I think this is the guy that I mentioned in the last episode, that the artist who drew Luthor in an upcoming strip thought that this guy was Luthor, and that's why he drew him bald.
yep, made him look like it. It's like, that's not Luthor,
Yeah.
dog.
I think the big thing I want to point out here is panels 35 and 36.
Okay.
Where Luthor is projecting his face, I guess, onto a tree.
Onto a tree. Well, he projected onto a rock
Yeah.
in the previous story. So,
but at least the rock face, he made it look like the face was part of the wall. This is just this weird head. Just when I was reading this and my eye caught that, when I turned to this page, my eye caught that as something that I'm going to be getting to in about 4 panels. I immediately went, what in the flip is going on here? Is he in the tree? What is his head sticking out of the tree? But that is so weird, because it just comes out of nowhere. A challenge, Superman. Who said that? And he turns around and here's freaking Luthor's head on a tree or projected on a tree, or they don't tell you at all what is going on there. They just I love that was really funny.
I do want to mention that the first plane that Luthor uses to drop a bomb attempting to kill Superman this issue, that plane is a really cool looking plane.
Yeah.
Panel 19, you can kind of see it in panel 21, but it's blowing up. But panel 19, it's reminiscent of a what is it, a 109 P109 Messerschmitt? I forget which one had the 2 parallel fuselages in World War II.
And looking at that page, because I'm looking at this on my desktop using the Kindle reader, and it shows me 2 pages at a time, so I can see the previous page along with this one. And it reminds me that first of all, we get this moment here where the thug posing as Martinson pops Clark in the back of the head, and Clark he possesses the ability to temporarily halt his beating heart, so he can pretend that he's dead. Is that new? That's a new Superman power.
I think that's pretty new. Yes.
And so Martinson, thinking that he's dead, chucks him out the window. Out you go to a mangled death. That's right. Hardcore.
I killed you, but I don't want you in here.
Yeah. It's not enough that you're dead. I want your body broken on the streets below. That's hardcore.
So this was this actually the first death of Superman?
Ooh, maybe. He's faking the whole time. He's a big faker.
Yeah, he is. He's done it repeatedly.
So let's talk about these contests real quick here.
Okay.
So the first one is the race.
Right.
Where Luthor has these 2 planes that are apparently super fast, and Clark or Superman races them on foot.
Right. They are super stratoliners.
Yes, that's right. Super stratoliners
is what he calls them. And yes, they are flying. There's 2 of them that actually race. Yes, there's 2 of them.
Yeah.
And Luthor he's in one, but he's not piloting it, is he?
I don't know. They don't really make that clear. The cockpit is in the very back of the plane.
And you can see, but you can't see any difference in the people. But Luthor is in one of the
he's
planes.
in one of them, yep.
And Superman is running. So the airplanes are flying and Superman is running, and that's the race.
And the panel 43, I got to point that out. As Superman is running, I'm assuming across the top of the ocean. That's how fast he can run. He looks back at the planes behind him and he yells out, get a horse.
Get a horse. Yes.
And I love that because I can't explain why I do certain things, but there's been at least one occasion in which we have passed people on bicycles and, you know, in the car. And I got nothing against people riding bikes, got nothing against them. But for some reason, I felt the need to roll down the window and yell, get a horse. I don't know why I did it, but I did. And so that's why that makes me laugh. They often, Siegel often, I've noticed in a lot of these, Superman at this time is kind of a wisecracker.
Mm-hmm.
He has a lot of one-liners like that.
Yeah, much more so than a point earlier on.
Yeah,
you can, if you have been reading straight through, you can definitely see that there's this line for a before and after.
Yeah.
That he right now he is much quippier than he used to be.
Yeah, he has at least one every story at this point.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
Usually
it's
more than one. It's like two or three, and they're always when he has the upper hand.
Yeah,
they're not quippy to start something,
right?
You know, which would be more smartassery than quippy. But they're always when he has like a la Spider-Man, the way Spider-Man will do it.
Yeah.
When he has the upper hand, he will throw something out there to show that he has the upper hand verbally.
Superman's is more because Spider-Man, his was always he would do that because he was afraid and uncomfortable. And it's the only thing that he could do to help him, you know, because really, you know, in the beginning of his career, he was a teenager fighting,
right. Yeah,
you know, crazy monsters and stuff.
High school. Yeah.
Superman's is almost more braggadocio, you know, he's like, they'll be shooting at him with a gun and he'll be like, ha, I needed a massage or something like that, you know. Yep. It's just always like, you silly humans almost, you know, but I find them funny. So the second contest is to see who can rise the highest above the earth and still return safely.
Right.
So one of those the stratoliners is flying straight up, and then Superman is jumping.
Well, he just jumped one time.
Yeah, just
there's nothing else to jump off of. So
yeah, just one leap into the air, and it takes him up so far that they are beyond the gravitational pull of the earth. And Luthor's not in this plane because that plane apparently just gets lost into outer space, I'm assuming, because they're just like, they just float off.
Yeah.
Superman, on the other hand, kicks his feet, blurring like propeller blades, and is able to propel himself back down into the atmosphere and can fall back toward Earth. And you know, you mentioned in the last episode the way he jumps around, and you know, these different things that they do now as he's jumping, that you just got to wonder at some point, did somebody ever just go, can we just make him fly? You know, we know eventually he's going to fly.
Right.
But that it didn't necessarily come out of the comics. But I just got to kind of wonder why, like, this is a good example. Did it just never dawn on them that maybe he should be flying? Or was Jerry Siegel very, you know, it's something I'd like to know. Was he very against the idea? No, Superman can't fly. He has to be able to still kind of figure out how to do things while he's jumping through the air. You know, it's too much of a cheat just to make him fly. Would be really interested to learn why it took so long for them to finally go, all right, let's make him fly. It's just so much easier. Because he might as well be flying at this point.
Well, especially now for this contest.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So the next.
So he wins both of these so far.
Yes, he's
Superman
won the
has
first
won
two.
both of these contests.
Because he's able to land safely while the other guys just float off into nothingness, apparently.
Here, it tells us that Luthor's vessel drifts to certain doom in the clammy clutch of outer space.
Yeah, so those guys are dead.
That's pretty definitive there.
All right. So the next one is, I guess, a feat of strength.
Yes.
He uses his science to magnetically make a giant boulder seem uh, light that light enough that he could pick it up with his hand.
Right. He
Um,
nullifies the massive weight of this huge object, and the
yeah,
object was just a tremendous boulder.
and then Superman picks it up with ease, and then juggles it with the one plane that didn't
Yeah, with the
float off
plane.
into space.
He's like, yeah, I can lift this and this.
You know, and then the third contest, I guess, is invulnerability.
Fourth.
Fourth contest, invulnerability. So we start with Luthor chucking a hand grenade at him.
How
That
is this a
doesn't.
contest?
Yeah, because ultimately it's just Luthor trying all these different things to
W-
try to kill Superman, and then when Superman's like, "No, none of this works. All right, let me toss you against your plane and see what
E-
cracks. Your skull or the
Exactly.
metal."
That
Yeah,
would be the other part of the
right.
competition. The contest. It's like,
And
well, I tried to blow you up with a grenade. Okay, let me see if I can squeeze your head like a grape.
yeah,
It,
and that
you know,
yeah, Luthor just like, "Nop, nop, you win, you win." you know,
but yeah,
obviously, you're going to be able to kill me by throwing me against my
how,
plane, so you
how is
win.
that? Yeah,
Yeah, it
a
was really dumb.
grenade.
Yeah,
He fires a cannon at him, and then he tries to douse him with some poison gas.
yeah.
And
I
then
think
Superman's like, okay, look,
it was just an excuse for Luthor to try to kill him.
to try
I
to damage
think
him.
reading this, while it never comes up in this story or the next one, I wouldn't be surprised if we find out later that this was all done on purpose to gauge
Oh, sure.
Superman's strengths and weaknesses. That's
Sure,
what this feels
absolutely.
like. Knowing Luthor, what he's going to become in the Silver
Yes.
Age, this is very much I knew I wasn't going to win this contest. And of course, we also know that it's just a distraction, so his team can go in and steal this
Right.
machine.
But still,
But
yeah.
I think it's the twofold is what's happening here. It's the distraction, and Luthor is also collecting data.
Yep.
That's what I
Even
think is
even
going on.
from the very beginning.
Um,
So, needless to say, Superman wins all the contests.
yeah, yeah, and then we find out that it was all just a distraction, so Luthor's people could go steal the machine. Um, Superman goes to get Luthor and to get the machine, and he asks the Professor Martinson if he remembers where he was held during captivity, and he was held in Satan's Canyon.
Awesome name. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So we don't really get this. Yeah. When you think of his base of operations in this story compared to Action 23, yeah, Action 23 is way better, but this one's got a cooler name
Yes.
because
Well,
it's in
yeah.
Satan's Canyon.
Well, they had a little
Uh,
bit more time to think about it, so.
yeah. And he going after Luthor. Luthor basically has a bunch of things set up, running through a canyon, and Luthor lets off a lot of explosions. So a bunch of boulders fall atop Superman, which he just punches out of the way. Wolves attack him, which I thought was kind of silly. But in the end,
But
it's like he
yes.
fights off the wolves, and then suddenly, as he's coming out of this pit, wherever the wolves were, he's rendered unconscious through a new gas. We don't see that. It's
Mm.
just suddenly they're pulling him unconscious out of this pit. I thought that was very weird.
And
Um,
so obviously this is a different gas than the one from the contest because that one
yeah,
didn't
right.
work.
Yeah. So
But
maybe he had two different ones, and he thought, all right, well, if this one doesn't work, then maybe the other one will. And
I don't know.
I'll, yeah. And then we got another ray here that he fires at.
What colors is the ray?
It's green.
Yeah. Now it causes earthquakes,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's green also.
Yeah. That's the machine. And so he it's all happens so fast. It's just like the ray hits the ground opens up, Superman falls in, the ground then closes up on him, and then yet bam, he burrows his way out within a panel, uh destroys the wall to get into Luthor's fortress, destroys the machine. Luthor apparently is gone at this
Right.
point. And then literally the very next panel is Clark opening up the door to his office to find Martinson dead by suicide. Which
I
is
wish they would have done the drill thing for him getting out of this. That would have been so awesome to see.
right where he just spins and turns into a drill. Yeah, that would have been awesome. Yeah.
And they didn't think about that. So
Yep.
why do you get through something? Well, you can drill through it. Oh, yes.
Yeah, but he burrows his way. I mean, he could have done that. They just don't show it. They just
Right.
there's a lot happening between the panels in this story.
Especially here at the end.
Yeah.
It's almost like, the script was written out, and then as they were drawing it, they're like,
we don't have enough room to show all
you
this
still have
stuff.
half your script left, and there's only 2 pages left to draw. So what are we going to do?
I can either draw the panels really tiny.
Yep. So yeah, there's a lot of interstitial drawings that you have to use your head for here between the panels, for sure.
And I want to point out that when the wolf attacks Superman, the text box says, instead of facing a shrinking Violet, the wolves are flung back, and he's saying, "Don't crowd me," as he's punching the wolf away.
Another quip. Yep.
Very quippy, this Superman. But yeah, and that's how it ends. Martinson's dead. The editor, I'm assuming this is Superman's editor. So Martinson killed himself, eh? He must have repented inventing such a terrible weapon. Clark says his secret died with him. It will never menace civilization again. And then that's the end of that story.
They're talking about a dude that killed himself.
Right. They just don't care. They're very heartless people this time. In this time.
Man, oh man.
It's like they might as well just be, it felt very much like when you see a cop show where the detectives show up at a murder scene and they're just very casually, this is their job. They see this all the time, and it's like, it looks like he committed suicide. Yeah, it very much felt like that. Like I almost feel like the body's there laying at their feet, and they're just talking about him as looking down at the body.
Almost, yeah.
But that's all I got to say about this one. There's another one of those little one page. This one's called Attaining Super Strength stories, where it shows how if a kid just exercises and eats right, they can become strong.
Yep.
And beat up bullies.
Tommy Blake.
Yep. And by eating right, it's
cereal for breakfast.
Yeah, good old milk and cereals. That's all you need. That's fine. And then they thought that's what they thought. Milk and cereals.
I knew people that lived on Fruit Loops and Captain Crunch in college. So that's
part of a balanced breakfast.
That's all it takes.
Yep. All right. Anything you want to about this one?
No, sir. I'm good.
Anything else? Okay. All right. Then I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode of the Superman Super Show. If you want to drop us a line, ask us a question, or just provide some feedback in general, you can send an email to thesupermansupershow@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter under the handle @SoupsSuperShow, or come join in on all the fun over at the forum at forum.justanotherfanboy.com. All of those links will be in the show notes. So until next week, folks, my name is Steven. That's Ed. And this is the Superman Super Show.
Bye, yo.
Later, tater. Save this one. Got one more to go. Episode 33, and that'll put us at the end of the year. That's a post-Christmas episode.
33?
34. This was we just did 33. That's what
33.
I meant. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 34. I guess will be the
the next one will be 34, and that will come out
the last week of the year,
day after Christmas.
Yeah. So now you typically do the Thanksgiving to Christmas break, right?
Yes, that was the plan, but since I took time off already, and since I I'm taking a couple weeks off, and the break is just on just another fanboy. But
Okay.
since I stopped there for a couple of weeks, and then I'm taking this break between episode 299 and 300, I'm going to keep going through the end of the year. I doesn't mean I may not take a break in January. I don't know, but
Okay.
yeah.
I'm just hosing things up here.
All right. I am recording.
As am I. La 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 la. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was not
Okay.
looking. I was not on the screen with the camera, and I just jumped over here, and you were just gone. We're just gone. My abandonment issues kicked in real quick.
Oh, they're there.
Little
It's not
tear
like
just
that.
rolled down my cheek. Lip started quivering.
Okay. I am. Let's see. Good to go. Luthor's Undersea City. Nope. Here. Okay. You ready?
I am ready.
You're listening to the Superman Super Show, episode number 34, aka Luthor's Undersea City. Hello, and welcome to the Superman Super Show. I'm a host. My name is Ed, and 1,000 miles over there to my left is another host, Mr. Steeven Orr.
Hmm.
That's Steven saying hi, by the way.
Yeah,
in
this
case you
is gonna
didn't know.
grunt my
Yeah.
my hello.
Reminds me of I just finished the second season of Primal. Was it you that I was talking
Yeah,
to
I haven't
about
watched
that?
it yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, Jendi, I think that's how you pronounce it. Tartakovsky.
yeah. I like his stuff, even though I never watched all of Samurai Jack. But
Well, that's okay.
he did that Clone Wars before the Clone Wars CGI. They did the series of shorts by him that were. He was Dexter's Laboratory. That's the first
Yes,
thing I remember.
originally, or at least that's the first place I saw him. I don't know
Yeah.
if that was
Yeah.
his first, but yeah, that's what I remember. So, this is the 4th episode. Those of you that are listening to the podcast, you might not be aware of this, but the 4th episode we're recording in one sitting. And so, one more time, I ask Steven, do you have a podcast recommendation?
I do. For those watching, this is something that this is a show that I just finished listening to 3 episodes yesterday. And it's called The Newsprint Commando, hosted by our very own Ed
Wow.
Moore. You can find that at comicbooknoise.com/TNC for The Newsprint Commando. And according to, I think I got this off of Apple Podcasts, join Ed as he talks about comics from the late 70s, 80s, and early 90s. And here's the key: not published by Marvel or DC. So the episodes I listened to recently were the first 3 issues of The Adventurers from 1986. You've also talked about like Badger and Nexus, among others.
Right.
But of everything you've talked about so far, Badger and Nexus are the only ones I'd ever heard of.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So I'm really kind of enjoying. I've never heard of The Adventurers, but it sounds fun. And the one thing I think of when I'm listening to these is, if I was like I was in my 20s, where I did a lot of back issue diving, where we go in and go through the back issue bins, this would be the perfect podcast to follow and then go find that stuff. You know, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's again, the key here, folks, is that it's not Marvel and DC books, and so you're probably going to hear some stuff that you've never heard of before, and it's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it.
Well, thank you.
Mm.
I remember back in the day when I saw ads for the Adventurers. Basically, it's two things. One thing is that it was the elevator pitch was Dungeons and Dragons meets the X-Men.
Yeah.
And I was a huge X-Men fan, and I'm like, wait, D&D? And so that's what got me. But yeah, that's what the Adventurers are. This is the show Steven's talking about is the first volume. It ran um, somewhere in the mid 20s, I think. I ended up talking about the first 5 issues.
Okay.
And there's a second volume of about the same 20 to 25 issues. And then I think there was a third volume of like 10 or 12 issues. Um, for the most part, it's the same characters through all of those. But of course, as I spoke of, I think in the very first issue, one of the original party dies right off in the first
Yeah.
issue. Which, if you've ever played D&D, you're lucky if you,
Yep.
as the player character, survive. That's all you're hoping for. So, but yeah, those were a lot of fun to read again. The first volume I read. If I ever talk about the second or third volume, it'll be the first time I've read those.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, those were a lot of fun. Um, as we have been talking about on Twitter about recording ahead of time.
Yeah.
I already have 3 different books over the course of the number of shows that I want to release for next year, picked out that I want to talk about.
Okay.
And some of those people might have heard of. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, actually,
So
here before too long, I'll start sitting down and recording those.
cool. So as of the time we're recording this, which was November 15th, the latest episode was for volume 1, issue 3 of the Adventurers.
Mhm.
So looking forward to when this episode releases on December 26th, where do you think we'll be?
I think probably we will have finished up the 5 issue run of that, and we'll be finishing up the first year of the show. So that's everything that I've pre-recorded. I don't
Okay.
have anything else yet. It's what I'm
Can you tease us with some titles for 2023?
sure.
See
I
if
am
I've heard of
looking.
any of them.
I am looking at Samurai from Aircell Comics
Okay.
by Barry Blair.
Mhm.
I'm looking at a book called Red Fox from
Mm.
Harrier Comics, which is a UK company.
Hmm.
Samurai, I think, was a little bit earlier, like 83, 84. Red Fox was in the middle, 86, 87. And then my plan is to release w- uh, two schedules. The Samurai and Red Fox, I'll alternate once a month. But I'm going to release a second show on, like, I don't know, the second Tuesday or the second Wednesday of every month, whatever, where I'm going to be focusing on the books published by Pacific. Among the books that Pacific had was the very first volume of Gru, which was about 15 issues,
Okay.
but also the very first book that they published was a Jack Kirby book.
Wow.
So, and the way I'm thinking about doing that is much like our fellow podcaster John Wilson did with um, all the pouches. So I will record shows talking about all of the books published in a given month, and then I will drop all of those episodes at the same time, which
Okay.
probably won't do anything that affects next year because their publishing schedule never got more than like just a couple books, which I'll be
Yeah.
able to squeeze into one episode. But if I
Cool.
continue, and at that rate, if I continue, it'll take me about 3 years to talk about all their books. The second and the third year, there's some months where they do like 8, 10, 12 books. So
Yeah.
those will be fun to do. But that's so Samurai from Aircell, Red Fox from Harrier, and the very first book from Pacific is oh, Jack Kirby, Captain. Oh, I can't remember the title. Captain. Nope. But the next book from them is a book called Star Slayer, which some folks may remember hearing about Star Slayer.
Sounds familiar.
It was based on an opera,
Hmm.
on a sci-fi opera that was written over on the left coast back in the early '80s, and it was adapted into a comic book.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I definitely have heard of Samurai.
Okay.
I was reading or trying to get my hands on Elf Lord,
Yes.
which was Aerosol, and
Mhm.
I got a number of copies up in the attic somewhere, and they have a number of them available on Comixology.
Do they really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
I think Volume 1 and Volume 2 are all on Comixology. There's only like 5 or 6
Mhm.
issues in
Yeah.
each volume, but so I knew about Samurai, and then what was it? Dragon Ring? Is that another one that they did at the
Yes.
time?
Yes, it is.
But I didn't really read any of those. They weren't fantasy comics about elves, so I didn't have any interest.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
but I'd never heard of this
Red Fox, I think
Red Fox?
probably a lot of people won't have heard
Yeah.
of that one because it was a UK book.
Yeah.
So,
And I don't
but
know that I've ever heard of I know what Gru was, but I don't know that I've heard of a company called Pacific. So
the Red Fox is a kind of a Red Sonja character.
okay.
That's kind of what she is.
All right. Fun stuff coming up.
So thank you for the shout out, by the way.
Yeah, sure. I'm enjoying it. It's a fun show. If you guys enjoy listening to Ed talk about Superman here, jump over there and listen to that. Here's some maybe some stuff that you didn't know existed. And then if you are one that likes to frequent comic book stores and go through those back issue bins, Ed's giving you a list of books to look for.
Yeah, Piper Cody, I'm sorry that I can't remember the title of that Pacific Kirby Captain something. Let me see if I can get it up here with a couple keywords.
Captain Caveman?
No. Pacific Comics.
Tell you what, if I would totally be down to writing the Captain Caveman comic book.
Would you now?
Oh yeah, I liked me some Captain Caveman when I was a kid.
Bear with me a minute, guys. This is going to haunt me if I don't pull it out of my behind and give the title of the book.
Stinky
here. Captain Victory and the Galactic Rangers.
Ooh, that's a long title.
Is that not a Kirby sounding name?
That sounds very 80s though.
Yeah, early 80s is when Pacific was in, and they were only around for like 3 years. They were a flash in the pan, but
the comic book store that we shopped in the 80s and then into the 90s in downtown Lawrence, Kansas, called Quality Comics, they did a pretty good job of getting a lot of indie books. Being a college town, there was some draw for that kind of stuff. But yeah, I've never heard a lot of those. So.
Something else about Star Slayer that I forgot, but Star Slayer contained the first appearance of the Rocketeer.
Oh, nice. The Rock-a-Who?
So that'll be.
It's from
oh yeah. Okay.
The Rock-a-Who? I'm the Rocketeer. The Rock-a-Who?
So there we go.
Dwayne
Captain
the Rock
Victory
Johnson.
Galactic Rangers. Okay, so are we bantered?
Banter complete.
All right. So today we're looking at Luthor's Undersea City, which is the second story to appear in Superman #4. This is written for us by Jerry Siegel, penciled by Joe Shuster, and inked by Paul Cassidy. Superman #4 has a cover date that indicates spring 1940, but Mike's Amazing World kind of pins that down for us and guesstimates that that had an on sale date of February 15, 1940, which February.
Now
Yeah,
this is
that's spring, isn't it?
yeah, and this
Get
is
much.
one of those where we talked last time, or the last time we did a group of episodes, not in the last episode, but that on Mike's Amazing World of Comics, I started to notice that some of those books have have it listed as approximate sale date, and some of them
Mhm.
are listed as on sale date. And this was one that has on sale date. So I think that's Mike saying this is when it hit the shelves or hit the stands. Was February
According
15th. Yeah.
according to
I
all
don't
the research.
yeah. I don't know where he
I don't know
these
how they do that
libraries
either,
are.
man.
I was there's a guy in, is it Georgia, one of the new senators in Georgia, who's a comic book fan, and I started following him on Twitter, and he's tweeted about being at the Library of Congress and finding a bunch of comic books there, like
Oh, yeah,
that are
I saw that.
yeah. So
So it because like and I told my wife that, and I turned to Terry and I said, I wonder if every comic book company in this country has to send a copy to the Library of
no,
Congress.
that's
Don't most books that are published have to send a copy to them?
I think so, and that's kind of weird because where do you fit all that after a while?
I don't know, but that's their problem. I just
Yeah,
wanna go and see
yeah, a
that.
bunch of underground stuff.
That's what I'm saying.
Pi-
That's
Piper Cody put in the chat that February 12th, 1940 was the debut of the radio serial.
cool.
So
So actually now would be the time to start listening as our
yeah,
reading matches up with when the radio serial started. I'm already
radio,
behind
yeah,
reading the newspaper serial if I was gonna do that. That started last year.
yeah.
So, all right. So this synopsis rather, is courtesy of Mike's Amazing World of Comics as well. Superman investigates trouble with the nation's oil wells. He learns that Luthor is behind the crisis and saves some of the wells from destruction. Later, as Clark Kent, he and Lois are kidnapped by two of Luthor's thugs because they've caused Luthor trouble in the past. Clark knocks Lois out and then causes the thugs to drive off a cliff. When Lois revives, they fly by plane to a glass enclosed city which is risen from the ocean. The plane is attacked by a pterodactyl, killing the pilot and injuring Lois. Superman lands on the island and fights off another beast, while the injured Lois is captured by Luthor, who controls the city. With Lois's safety in jeopardy, Superman is forced to cooperate with Luthor. He fights another beast while Lois is taken to be killed. Superman overcomes his opponent, rescues Lois, and destroys the city. Luthor is apparently killed by his own creatures. So, what did you
So
think of that
sad.
one, Stephen?
This was a fun one. His base of operations has risen a notch. And I think what's most amazing about this Undersea City is he didn't build it. The city was already there.
Yes, he found
It
it.
was a sunken city, Pacifo or something, some weird name. And he,
Pacific,
yeah,
something
it
like
was
that.
really
But
dumb name,
it puts you in
but
mind of
he,
Pacific Ocean, but it wasn't
right,
spelled exactly the
exactly.
same.
And he spent time underwater covering the city with glass so that you could hang out there with the dinosaurs and breathe the air.
Yeah.
This, yeah, probably didn't smell all that great. This issue really kind of brought home to me how useless really Lois is in a lot of these stories, that her only purpose of being in this story was to provide uh to be a hostage so that Luthor could say, do what I say, or she's gonna, because the first thing that happens to them, Superman Clark reaches over and gives her the old Vulcan nerve pinch. The second time
Right.
he's done that now, knocks her unconscious, and she spends a majority of this book either unconscious or in a coma-like state.
Right. Yeah.
Which,
Her point, according to Mr. Siegel, is to be rescued.
yeah,
That's what she is there for.
that's why she's there. Yep.
Yeah. So, and to me, yeah, okay. Um, there are certain things that are almost always written a certain way in comic books. Um, the longer you read, the more that it just dawns on you that, and so
Yep.
you start to overlook things because it's quote unquote good or bad. Okay, I'm not judging it, but it is the way that it is, and
Is
it's
it?
always that way. And so it doesn't make, after a while, you get desensitized to it and you
Yeah.
don't pay as much attention to it.
Yeah.
The female in distress is a very long-standing trope
Oh
in
yeah.
comic books because the majority of the characters being written about are male, and so it is used as a motivation for the male. I just finished um, Miss or Mrs. I'm not sure, DeRoss's biography of Gardner Fox. And according to her, he was, particularly for his time, maybe not in comparison to what you see now, but for his time, and for those of you that don't know Gardner Fox, he is, among other things, the reason I read it, he is the creator of Dr. Fate. So he is a much written DC Golden Age creator. He also is involved in the Flash,
Mhm.
co-creator. I believe he's also creator or co-creator of Hawkman. I mean, and
He's a
right
big
there,
name.
we're starting to throw out
Yeah,
long, long standing
yep,
characters.
he's one of the big
So
names.
yeah, and according to Miss or Mrs. DeRoss, he was very good because his thinking was this way also, in that women should stand on their own feet. That's why they exist, is to be a person that does things. They don't exist to be used as a reason for something else.
Yep.
And in thinking about, as I said in one of the earlier episodes, I've read all of Dr. Fate's appearances, and in retrospect, he did write females differently from, in this case, Lois.
Yeah.
And if you have read several Dr. Fate stories that had Dr. Fate's girlfriend, name escapes me, but you will see in comparing the two that, yeah, she doesn't run afoul as much. She is there, and she is there after he's done something and he comes back in much more of a normal situation, almost like a husband going to work and coming home from work,
Yep.
as opposed to a kidnapping in peril, which happens a couple times in the Dr. Fate story, but that's not mainly what happens. She lives a much more normal life uh, than
Nice.
what we have seen from Lois.
Yeah.
And now reading the Superman stories, it is very more obvious to me that that is what Gardner Fox was doing with women in Dr. Fate than what Siegel is doing with women here for Superman. The Gardner Fox biography, I would highly recommend
Yeah.
it. Uh, she did a very, very good job on the book. It's not just Gardner Fox's Inza. Yes, Piper, thank you. Or Inza, among, like, over the course of the stories, her name fluctuated 3 or 4 times too, but Inza, I think, is what mainly stuck. Um, the biography talks about Gardner Fox as a person, not just as in his comic book aspect, because over the course of his writing career, he wrote also several hundred novels, several hundred novelettes, magazine articles. He wrote for more than just DC before and after writing for DC. So he was
Yeah.
a very written man, particularly for his day. Very, very good biography. I just finished it up this past weekend, actually. So a lot of fun.
I'll
Sorry.
look into it. I've been wanting to read more books about comics,
Mhm.
comics history and whatnot. And the damsel in distress trope, we're still getting that
Oh yeah,
today.
yeah,
They've just, what writers do now is that they take the woman and they make her she's a strong character. She stands on her own and she's a fighter. And then, but the only reason you put her in the movie is so the bad guy could kill her and give the male hero
right,
his reason,
right.
for coming out of retirement or, shutting down the bad guys. Cause your male hero always has to have flaws and they're always reluctant to, it's too busy drinking and
They
being
have
an
to have a good
alcoholic. And
reason to.
and sometimes the easy reason, and my God, for the longest time I'd never noticed it. And you know took my wife to point stuff like that out to me, and it's like
You
once it's pointed out, it's sometimes it's just
you
so screamingly obvious that
yeah, you just become desensitized to it
yeah,
because it is every book, not every physical book, but every title.
yep,
It occurs at some point in every title
yep,
because all of the heroes that we're reading are male,
they're males written by males, yeah,
you know. Now, take Wonder Woman, for example. I know that Steve Trevor has been put in peril, but not as frequently and not in the
as
same ways
yeah. And
because it's a man. Even
Wonder
though the female is the protagonist, the foil male can't be done like that for whatever reason. I don't, so.
and the dude that created Wonder Woman, basically
Oh,
put that her weakness was what, being tied up. So
yes,
they
yeah.
often had
There's
to, whereas Superman would be presented with kryptonite. They had to,
yeah.
they
Wonder
had to
Woman's
tie Wonder Woman up.
her golden age stuff had some interesting quirks
Yeah,
because of the personality of her creator. Yeah,
yeah. What
it was.
very little I know about that guy. It's like,
It's
wow.
a different. Again,
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge or say right or wrong or whatever, but
Yep.
different.
Oh yeah.
Okay, if people are writing a character like that today, it's not going to be a mainstream Marvel DC book that you're
Yep.
reading it in. I'll put it
Yep.
that way.
Yep.
So take that for what you will.
Yep.
Okay, so back to our book here. So Superman is fighting off a missile attack once again. That seems to be very popular from Luthor here, sending bombs and missiles
Yeah.
at Superman. Only this time, as Superman is defeating this particular missile, Luthor projects his face onto the missile
Yep.
rather than a tree like last issue. It's a missile this issue, and they talk back and forth. I think Luthor was trying to distract Superman long enough for the missile to completely fall out of the sky, but
Yeah.
Superman was onto that and he jumped off just before it hit the ground and exploded. Not that it would have hurt him anyways, but and that was to try to derail him from getting to the oil wells. That's where
Yeah.
Superman is on the way to,
The
which automatically tells you that Luthor must have something to do with what's going
Yep.
on there since he's trying to waylay Superman.
The oil derricks, which they use that term quite often here at the beginning of this story, which I really enjoyed because even though it's not spelled the same way, I have a friend named Derek. And so
Oh,
all
well,
the
there we go.
derricks that were being destroyed.
Would that be Mr. Coward or would that be someone else?
No, but
Okay.
yeah, the one of my old bandmates. His name was
Okay.
Derek.
Yes, I mentioned Derek Coward. For those of you that do not know, Mr. Coward is in no small way responsible for comic book podcasting.
Yeah.
So look him up if you have any interest in history of comic book podcasting.
Yep.
So Superman gets here. He's waylaid again by an earthquake, but he has a little helpy here for some of the oil derricks for the earthquake. Now, Clark got sent by his editor to look at the oil wells. Lois shows up out of nowhere. She boards an
Yeah.
airplane to go out there. I don't know why.
Yep.
Presumably because the editor told her to go out too. But we know he
Yeah.
didn't tell her at the same time that he told Clark because we saw that.
Right. Yep.
We didn't see anything having to do with Lois other than essentially she shows up in Oklahoma and Clark's like, "Oh, he sent you too. Okay, well let's go." And
Yeah. And in fact, Clark is such a go-getter that I love his response when his editor tells him that he's sending him to Oklahoma, you know, cover the story. And Clark says, just try and stop me.
there's more quippy,
You know,
not necessarily for the same reason, but
right.
still the same personality.
Sounds like a suck up to me.
Oh, harsh. So Clark and Lois go to the Oklahoma Bulletin, is the name of the paper here, to find out what's going on. But they find out while they're there that California is falling into the ocean at the same time that they're in Oklahoma. They're told that the ocean has risen 2 feet. So I guess it's not California falling in, it's the ocean coming
Yeah.
up to over.
And it's continuing to rise.
So Clark grabs Lois and they're going to head out there, but they're waylaid by a couple of ne'er-do-wells, courtesy of Luthor, waiting for him. Knew that they were going to come out because I guess, Luthor knew they were there. So Luthor did something to the West Coast because he knew they would leave. And in leaving, they would be exposed. So he sent some henchmen to get them. Yeah, that's the logic here is getting kind of specious to me. It's like, okay,
if Luthor's a planner.
If you wanted Clark and Lois, just go grab them. Don't destroy California just to get them. It's a bit overkill. We know you're a smart guy, but come on. So Clark and Lois now are in the clutches of the ne'er-do-well, and this is where, as they're driving, before he does anything, Clark gives the Vulcan nerve pinch to Lois,
Save her life,
as you indicated, for the second time now.
Yeah.
Knocks her out. He messes with the car while he's doing this. One of the ne'er-do-wells has a pistol and shoots him in the face.
Yeah.
I think that's the first time we've seen that.
Yep.
But point blank, shoots him in the face.
The glasses even survive.
Yeah. So Clark he's getting tougher and tougher all the time now. Used to be he would stand out there and it would be a rifle. Now he's taking pistol shots to the face, and it's like
inches from his face. My teachers always did tell me I was thick-skulled.
Yeah, quip.
Yep.
We need dinosaurs in a future. Yeah, there we go. So he overcomes the two thugs, and in the process, the car loses control, goes off the cliff. Clark. Do you want to mention that, Steve?
Oh, the comment?
Yeah.
Piper Cody said, I wonder if this influenced Superman the movie. We need dinosaurs in a future movie. And when you ask me what I thought about this issue, all I got to say is Superman fights dinosaurs. I'm done. That's all. I'm happy.
You're out? Okay.
That's right. It's like, I'm sorry. Superman's fighting dinosaurs. Where do I sign up?
Okay. Yeah, I'll watch it.
Yep.
So the car careens off the mountain here, killing the guys. Apparently, here's another scene where there's no other outcome but the people dying.
Yeah, either the car going off the cliff kills them, or when he slammed their two heads together.
yeah,
That could have killed him.
That's true. He could have pulped their brains
Yep.
by the Laurel and Hardy thing there.
Doug's right. Dinosaurs make every story better.
Well, yeah, but I think gorillas make it a little bit better. So
what about gorillas riding
and
dinosaurs?
Dinosaurs. Okay, that's a done
Boom.
deal there.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's writes itself. I mean, that's
yes, it does.
That's the one there. Throw in some fancy words like kaiju and stuff like that, and
I mean,
over.
when Peter Jackson did King Kong, I remember going out to eat with Karen and I think her family, and that night we were either going home to see King Kong or we were going to the theater to see King Kong. I don't remember which, but they had asked, "What are you guys doing tonight?" And so we're going to go see the new King Kong. And I remember one of her brothers saying something to the effect of, "Man, I heard that movie is just really long and boring and it's a big slog." And I said, does he fight a T-Rex in that movie? And he's like, "Yeah, he does." "Does he fight 2 T-Rexes in that movie?" And he's like, "Yeah." "Does he fight 3 T-Rexes in that movie?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's all I need to know."
That's and have you seen the original King Kong?
I've seen clips of it.
Black and white. He fights a dinosaur in that.
Yep.
So
Yes, he does.
so they have always put
Yeah.
King Kong the gorilla against dinosaurs.
Yep.
It's you got to if you want to have a legit King Kong movie.
That's right.
So Clark rescues Lois here, but now she's unconscious, so she doesn't know all of the super feats he's doing to rescue her. When she does come to, she just comes to as him being Clark.
Yeah.
And he just feeds her some bull story about what's going on. So she doesn't know any better.
Yeah, she's a dumb lady. She's a dumb woman. She didn't need to know what's going on.
Gullible. I think she's gullible. We have to be kind. So Clark finds a pilot to fly them out to the glass. What does it say here? Glass enclosed city of ancient weird design. That's the narration description here.
I did make a note on this. I actually looked this up because Clark asks the pilot if they will take him somewhere, and the guy says, "I'll take you for $1,000." Okay. And Clark's like, "Oh, that's a deal." I looked it up. And according to, I'll just say, the internet.
How much was $1,000?
$1,000 then would be about $20,000 today. Oh, some of the results said 19,000, some said 21,000, so about $20,000. Clark was just like reaching into his wallet. Here's $20,000,
rolling in money as a newspaper reporter.
Yeah. And well, I wonder if he still has that millions, because way back.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, we never saw him turn that in. So
right. I know he tried to use some of it in that one story to help out somebody for some reason, the rich guy who was so bored because he had all this money and couldn't figure out how to spend it and stuff. But yeah, he may still have all that money.
Dude, good point. Okay. So as they get near to the city, this is where they run into the stray pterodactyl, which apparently suddenly up from the prehistoric city. So here's an interesting thing. The city it's just a city. It's not an island and then there's a city, but it's just a city.
Yep.
And just the city is encased in glass. And out of that is the pterodactyl. Probably more than one if we really got down to it. But
and it's not like even a glass dome. It's like the glass is almost form fitting to the buildings. It's one thing to build a glass dome around a city, but to actually shape the glass, that's some dedication. Yeah,
it's form fitting. The pterodactyl, of course, is every bit as big as the plane. So it attacks the plane and does a number on it, killing the pilot and knocking Lois unconscious. So for the second time this story, Clark does Superman stuff as
Yeah.
Clark, with
Yeah.
Lois being unconscious and not being able to see or find
Yeah.
out that there's any connection there between the two. She, yeah, she never makes the
Two
connection of how.
images in this story leaping.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we get two images in this story of Clark leaping from an exploding vehicle carrying an unconscious Lois. That happens twice in this story.
Right. In the same story. So it's like, um, Jerry, are you running out of things here that you're having to, repeating is one thing, but repeating in the same story, it's like,
Yeah.
come on, man, it's Superman. Let him fly. But no, I'm
I know,
kidding.
right? It's like, come
Okay.
on.
He can't even fly, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So with Lois in tow, he takes out the pterodactyl, so it'll
Yes, he
quit
does.
bugging him, and then plummets essentially, right, the rest of the way down to the ground, but not hurting Lois. He
Yeah.
sets her over there. He goes over here and changes to Superman's outfit now, right? He takes off the Clark suit and comes back over here to where Lois is waking up as Superman. I don't believe she. No, she doesn't ask about Clark because she's in some kind of altered state.
Yeah.
So
She's
she doesn't even realize what's going on. She can move around,
so
but
the shock must have put her in a coma.
and it's a very interesting coma because
Yeah.
she's sitting up and moving
Yeah.
around and everything like that.
It's like an automaton, basically.
Yes. Superman saves her from a giant rat, which I can only presume came out of the glass encased city,
Yeah.
right? So that's because now
Grabs it by the leg and
by the
flings
leg.
it around.
Yeah, it doesn't rip the leg out by doing that.
Nope.
The rat
Yeah.
stays whole, and
Yeah.
so all of this is occurring though on an island now. So not just a city has risen up out of the ocean, but the city is on an island, and the island has nice vegetation and just like any other above water island, like the Hawaiian Islands.
Yep.
So the island has not been under the water, but the city attached to the island has been under the water. Luthor doing some extreme science with that stuff. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So yeah, he dispatches, like Steven said, the giant rat by flinging it around by its back leg, and no, it didn't tear it off. It just and threw it out into the ocean. When he turns around, Lois is gone because she's been grabbed by a couple henchmen and carted over to a plane that is flying to the city when the city is easily within visual distance. I mean, they could have
Yeah.
easily walked to the city.
Yeah.
So another cool design for the plane. I like the prop on the front and the
Yeah.
back. That's kind of cool. As he's flying, Luthor just talks to Superman this time. He doesn't do the casting his image on a cloud or anything. He just voice projection, telepathy, or who knows what it is.
Yeah, his God voice.
Yeah. So they land. The plane lands. Superman sees her before he can go and rescue her from the two thugs here. Luthor is there, and here in panel 68, Luthor is looking pretty rough.
Right?
He's
Yeah.
looking almost skeletal or something, very withered and drawn, and yeah,
And they're drawing his hair very disheveled. It's just like this rat's nest on top of his head almost.
Yeah. So once again, Luthor wants to test Superman against a giant creature that, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, he tells Superman that he only wants to revive Lois.
Right.
He tells his henchmen to take her to the Green Laboratory, which apparently is code to mean killer.
Killer, right? Because that's what they try to do.
Yeah. And I wonder, they don't make it clear, but I almost wonder if Luthor really did want to help her and that the thugs just misunderstood. He's like, I think he meant he wanted us to kill her because he said the green laboratory, and that means to kill her. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of funny that it was actually they were just mistaken.
Yeah, probably not though with Luthor, but yeah,
No,
I guess
yeah,
it's possible
probably
because
not.
we're not told. So yeah,
Right, we're not. So I in my mind that's a little side story that
the the Navy, the official peoples finally noticed that there's a big floating
this
city out here, covered in glass.
yeah,
Um, there's a word for that in cooking, covered in glass. Uh,
glazed.
okay. And so they get together, and one military talks to another military who talks to another who sends investigative planes out, but they say verify the report. If the situation warrants it, use lethal gas.
Yeah, just leaving the decision up to them.
American flyers
Yeah.
is who these men are that have now been given the double O designation, if you
Yep.
will.
You have a license to kill.
Superman gets into a kind of a combat arena. Well, not kind of. It says an open arena, and goes up against a kind of tyrannosaur that I don't know.
I don't
Maybe
know what the flip that is.
he's just huffing and puffing or something,
Yeah,
or it could be that he's breathing fire.
I don't know. It almost looks like I can almost hear that dinosaur going, "Put him up, put him up." You know, 'cause it
Almost.
looks like he's
That's
got his dukes up, and he's ready to do some fisticuffs with
kind of
Superman.
yeah, kind of a humorous panel there for
Yeah,
82, but then for 83 and 84, where Superman is beating him, he looks a little bit more
right.
serious about it.
Yeah,
But Superman defeats that dinosaur, that creature, monster, I guess is what they called him. Uh, Luthor gives the order to have Superman and Lois killed because now, um, did we miss? Yeah, I didn't mention, but yeah, Stephen mentioned the take her to the green room and everything that
yeah,
failed uh, because Superman heard them talking about it, and he breaks through the wall and rescues her. So she is safe by the time he goes to the arena. Actually, she's down in the arena with him.
yeah,
We don't see her really getting away, but she's down there with him,
yeah. She's still an automaton at this point.
and she is still in need of rescue.
Yes, very much so.
Luthor gives the kill order since his monster didn't do the job, but by this time the American planes have arrived, and they are indeed dropping lethal gas.
And do you see what it says? What the guards before the guards can use their green rays?
Green, red. Yeah, see that with green. It's
Yeah,
all green. What?
yeah,
You can't tell me there's no connection between this and the fact that later on that
yeah,
kryptonite is green.
yeah.
It's just yeah. This everything that Luther has done has been colored green.
And
Green
I
gas,
mean,
green rays, the green room, the green liquid they were going to kill Lois in.
yeah. Stan Lee has always said that like the colors green and purple were villain colors. It's like well, that's why all the
Okay.
villains wore green and purple. The only hero that wore green and purple would be the Hulk because he was green with purple pants, but that's because he was kind of an anti-hero. But all the heroes were like red, white, blue, and all the villains purple and green.
Now that's interesting because in literature class in college, green indicated something else in literature.
Yeah.
Green was the natural,
Yeah.
which is kind of opposite of being evil and whatever. So interesting convention there that got flipped
Yep.
between types of literature,
Yeah.
media, media. Yeah, I guess types of
Yeah.
media maybe would be better. Um, so Superman scoops up Lois. The planes damage the enclosed city enough that it's a distraction. It allows Superman to get out. He goes through the glass covering. So let's see. First of all, for some reason, Luther gets down to being in the arena with the monster.
Yeah, I don't that makes no that it's really hard to follow just those two panels. It's like, is Luthor down in the it because it looks to me like
The monster is
Superman
up.
jumped up, yeah, to
Mhm.
where Luthor was, but for some reason the monsters are up there too. And then Luthor tells the monsters to get Superman, and instead they attack him.
Right.
Uh,
So to to get away from everything, Luther tries to lower the city back into the ocean, and so he encloses it back. So apparently, it opened up
yeah,
when it rose, even though every picture of it had the glass case. The
yeah,
city was always enclosed, but apparently, in the air, it had to be opened up because now that he's trying to pull it back down into the ocean, he has closed the glass case to try to escape. Superman escapes with Lois, busting through the glass, allowing the ocean now to run into the city as it's submerging itself. Further, I'm sure helping the city submerge even faster than, than what
yeah,
Luther had originally planned. Superman swims with Lois back to the mainland. Uh, she's okay. He kind of gives her another poo poo story about what's been going on while she's been out of it, because from the time that the pterodactyl attacked the airplane, Lois has no memory of what happened from that point to
yeah,
now. So she was completely out of it. She woke up. Did they do anything? She just woke up on her own. Yeah.
yeah.
So
He's able to
take her to a doctor.
take her to the shore, find a change of clothes, and
Hmm.
get her to a doctor.
Yep, not her. She's in the same rags she's been wearing the whole time, but
Yeah,
he
yeah,
he has gone in and out of suits and whatever.
yeah,
Yeah. So he catches her up. We see, which is something in the last all of these stories that we've talked about tonight have these paper shots of headlines and
yeah,
sub headlines and everything like that. So that's a new thing that they're doing, kind of to sum up what has happened in the story.
yeah, and to kind of show that not only is Superman doing his job, Clark Kent's also doing his job and writing articles about what happened.
Right, right. Um, Way to go from the editor. Thank you much here from Superman. End of story. And in this issue, we have an image of the Sandman advertising Adventure Comics. Last issue, it was an image of the Spectre
Yeah,
advertising
they're kind of
more
going back and forth.
more fun.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember what book the Spectre was from. I'm too.
But we learn that the reason why the Pacific Ocean was rising and covering California, I guess, was due to the city coming out of the ocean, and
That's
that
if
the he had taken over all these oil fields because then he was using the oil to power the city.
yeah. Yeah, they kind of said that, but they didn't really explain
Yeah,
why the finding of the city and
it's
what trying to raise it caused it, like a
yeah, it's
tidal
comic book
wave
science.
to
And in fact,
exactly.
the panel with the newspaper, one of the little headlines you see is "Scientists baffled." There's more there, but it's like, yeah, I think we all are kind of baffled about how this
Mm,
happened.
yeah, all of the
So we're in
it,
good
it
company. Even the scientists don't know how this worked.
it's too big for us. Luther had it all figured
Yeah,
out, but it's
that's
us
right.
us simpletons, us plebeians, we have no chance of understanding it. So
It's too big. It's too big for our minds to comprehend.
so there are the first three, arguably four appearances of who we will know to
Mm.
be Lex Luthor.
Lex Luthor still around today. Still Superman's the Superman villain.
Oh yeah, I would think definitely. Although
Mm.
you're talking on another one of your shows about a pretty nasty villain. I don't think Lex ever managed to kill Superman, although that's
Yeah.
that's kind of
And then,
a softly used word, but
yeah. And talk about how he points Superman they're super smart, so brain over brawn, and that's why they, from what Dan Jurgens has said, why they chose Doomsday. Doomsday wasn't originally created to just be something that came in to kill Superman. They had been toying with an idea of bringing in a villain. All of his villains, ultimately, at that point, most of his villains were villains that took down Superman using their brains, except for like the Parasite. But otherwise, they weren't like super strong guys like him. So they wanted to bring a character in that could, go toe to toe with Superman physically. So they'd already kind of come up with his design, and Jurgens had been doodling him and stuff. And so then when they came up with the death idea, it was like, well, here we got this guy right here. Let's use him.
Cool. And that is we're talking about, since you spoke of one of my shows, we're talking about another show that Steven is doing, Just Another Fanboy Presents, where he is talking about the storyline Death of Superman, pretty much as I was speaking about doing the Pacific Comics coverage. He is talking about the books as they release or were released 30 years ago for our weeks as we are moving through it. You've dropped 5 episodes so far?
Yes, as of today, November 15th, 5 episodes. Episode 6 comes out on Thursday the 17th.
And that will be, he will be talking about those books that released in the Death of Superman storyline this week 30 years ago.
Yep.
And moving forward, that will be what he is happening. And if there was a week, which there always are weeks where elements of the storyline, there are no books that fit into that, he has plans to fill that slot with other aspects of the story that he is talking about ultimately. Now, are you stopping with the end of Death of, or are you going into the...
I'm going through the whole thing, Death and Return of Superman. Yeah.
Okay.
It's almost a full year of stories.
Right. Okay.
With I think there are 12 weeks, I think I counted throughout it, that there weren't any books released during those weeks. And some of those weeks I may just take off. The first break is coming up. I think it's week 7, maybe. I think it's the week after Superman dies.
Okay.
Or very close to it. But I'm going to go ahead and try to put an episode out that week. I'm going to talk about the recently released 30th anniversary special.
Right.
That they
I was wondering if you'd read that. I don't think you had said anything about having read that, or...
I haven't read it yet. I've got it, but I haven't read it yet. But it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of the art teams are coming back. So you got like Dan Jurgens with Brett Breeding on one of the stories. It's like 4 stories in one issue. And I know that Tom Grummett and who's the other guy? John Bogdanov, who did the Man of Steel stuff. Because then, once he dies and they do the whole the 4 Supermen that come back, each one of those 4 titles kind of becomes their own thing. Superboy, Steel, the visored Superman, and the cyborg Superman.
Okay. So there you go, guys. There's more Superman talk if you want to hear Steven talk about another aspect of Superman. That one, 30 years ago would be 90, which would be 50 years after what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So different time frames of Superman represented just from this one podcaster, Mr. Steven Orr.
Piper Cody says he's enjoying Just Another Fanboy Presents.
Well, cool beans.
I'm having a really good time making the show. It's like Just Another Fanboy. I bounce all over the place, and this is the point of this is one storyline until it's done, and then we'll do something else later.
All right. So anything else you want to say about Superman 4?
I don't think so. No, I don't. No, I didn't make any other. Didn't make any other notes. I'm good.
Alrighty. And for those of you that can see, this is Kitsune here, who's decided to fill my space with me.
That's the cat that I usually see.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have another one, but she doesn't typically come up and get in my face like this one does.
Hold on just a second. What?
Are you about done?
Yeah, we're wrapping up this one and we're done. Yeah.
She's-
Okay.
Very sweet.
Oh, is she cuddling with
Being cute.
Hey,
you should
hey.
come and see.
Palin's cuddling with the new kitten right now. So
Alrighty, guys. We do want to thank everybody for listening tonight to this episode of the Superman Super Show. If you want to drop us a line, ask us a question, or maybe just give us some feedback in general, you can send an email to the supermansupershow@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter under the handle @SoupsSuperShow, or come join the fun over on the forum at forum.justanotherfanboy.com. All the links for all these things will be in the show notes, so you can catch up with it there. Till next week, I'm Ed. That is Steven, and this was the Superman Super Show. Ciao.
bye. All right. Well, I will save this recording real quick here. And then Doug says he's enjoying Just Another Fanboy Presents as well. Thank you, Doug. When did you I did Piper asks if I got the cold opening submission. I don't think so. When did you send it? Be about 2 minutes before he hears that and responds. As we're waiting, the recording is a while ago. Okay. Was it to the Just Another Fanboy at gmail.com? I'm assuming so. I'll go back and look through it. If I don't see it, I'll reach out to you on Twitter. And hopefully you still have it and you can resubmit it. I know the episode that's coming out Thursday has my introduction, but yeah, we got a whole year of episodes for intros. So yeah, let me go through the inbox. I don't remember anything coming up, but my brain doesn't work most of the time. So let me go through and see what I got. If I don't have anything, I'll reach out to you through Twitter, and hopefully either I have it or you still have it. So yeah, because I want it. All right. My recording has finished saving, so I need to go look at my daughter cuddled up with a
Cuteness.
kitten.
I understand.
Yeah. So Piper, Doug, thanks for hanging out with us tonight.
Terry, thanks.
Terry,
who's in
yes,
bed.
always, as always.
So.
My wife is just off camera.
I can hear her every now and
She's
then.
joining us, and there's her hand.
Yep, I was going to say, there she is. We see movement.
She's joined us in spirit, and I got the clock changed on video. So
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
You.
yes, you did that.
Stupid daylight savings time.
Yeah, the last time we'll ever do the daylight savings.
You too, Doug.
After
Yeah,
stopping
they
it?
made that Congress made that law that they're not
For
doing
real?
daylight savings anymore. Yeah, this is the last time.
Oh, I think that's.
Yeah, no. 4 years from now they may decide to change it back. We don't know.
Who knows?
But
yeah.
yeah.
Well, no, it would be 2 years from now, right? He's only
Yeah.
got 2 years left.
Yep.
So
That's true.
potentially 2 years from now they'll change it.
Yeah.
So is this the last time you want to do this year?
Well, if we don't meet at least one more time this year, then when we go into January, we won't have anything.
Okay. Well, if you want to, just let me know.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah, maybe let's see, what do we got? I mean, maybe we can get together the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, and then that'll put us into January, and then then we can just take a month or so off at that point.
That'll be 29.
Yeah.
The 29th. Okay. Yeah, that looks cool.
All right. We'll tentatively plan that.
All righty.
All right, then. Oh, I got to end the broadcast. So I'm ending the broadcast. So for those of you watching,
Thanks, everybody.
Peace out. Broadcast is